Welcome to Classic Trials. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we make sense of the law one bite at a time. In this series, we observe and analyze the play-by-play of some of the biggest trials that have shaped the public consciousness of the American judicial system. In this season, we're working our way through the case of California v. Erik and Lyle Menendez. Growing up in Princeton, New Jersey, and then Beverly Hills, California, these young men had everything they could ever want, or so it seemed, until one night on August 20th, 1989, they approached Jose and Kitty Menendez with newly purchased shotguns. Put on trial for murdering their own parents, they claimed self-defense, arguing they were terrorized in their own home by abusive parents until they could take no more. Which argument is more convincing? Come join and see for yourself. Hello. Sorry, I realized the door was open and Mr. Bites was watching something in the other room. So I had to pop up real quick at the last second. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope that wherever you are watching this from, you are having a wonderful, wonderful Monday. I hope your weekend was great. I hope that this upcoming week is also great for you. So we've got a little bit of an ambiance change in here because I know that technically you're supposed to wait until after Thanksgiving, but I figured it's Thanksgiving week. So we are going all in with the holidays and the holidays. And I don't know, I might even add more if you can believe it. So anyhow, I hope you guys are having a great one, like I said. And welcome to another episode of Classic Trials. Of course, we are going through episode 6 now of the Menendez trial. We have been going through all kinds of testimony. We've had all kinds of mustaches and shoulder pads and paisley shirts to boot. And it has been such a fascinating case so far. Today is probably going to be just as fascinating as others because we've got two very interesting witnesses to hear from. One of whom is Erik Menendez's former tennis coach. And then the second one is Erik Menendez's his best friend from high school. So we've got some very, very, very interesting stuff to hear. And now Holmes is opening the door. Thank you, Holmes. Maybe he'll do me a favor and close it after him. Hey, Holmes. Never mind. Anyway. Okay, so anyway, so the thing about the best friend, Craig Cignarelli, the second witness that we'll be hearing from today, is that there was actually a whole very long argument about whether or not he should be able to testify, what he could be testifying to, because the prosecution really wanted him to talk about a certain screenplay that he and Erik co-wrote, which kind of followed along what actually ended up happening in this case, particularly a rich kid coming from rich parents, killing his parents for the money, for the estate. And it's like a murder mystery, whodunit kind of thing. So there was a whole long argument, which we will not be watching. We're just going to skip right to his actual testimony because, spoiler alert, he was able to testify. So we'll be getting right into that. But first, let's say hi to some folks, shall we? All right. Madel Grobelar says, hi there. Hope you're well from Pretoria, South Africa. Doing very well. I hope you're doing well as well. We've got Joe Beer saying hi to Madel from rainy England. Living life with and singing songs with Mallory. Hello from cold Utah. Hope you're able to cozy up in that cold Utah. Jane Blackbird, hi from Humboldt. Mary M, good evening from Munich. Night Eyes from England. KP from Dallas. Otterly Bell from snowy Sweden. Let's see. And where else have we got? We've got more folks coming in here as well. Let's see. Let me scroll through here. We've got Ninine from North Carolina. Hi, how's it going? We've got, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I'm probably going to butcher this. Lockmelken 11, Elizabeth. Hello from Germany. Guten Tag. I hope you're having a good day. Let's see here. Tally. Hi, everyone. Hi, Alita. Love the lights so much. Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm glad. At first, when I was putting it up, I was like, does it look messy? I don't know. But I think that they are, they're all right. They're all right. I think I'll keep them where they are. We've got Iris from New York. Good morning. Good morning. Or good afternoon in New York at this point now. Let's see here. Where else have we got folks coming in from? We've got Bronwyn W. from Utah. Hallie F. from Bandera County, Texas. Tammy Hallowell from Utah. Let's see. We've got Catlin from Oklahoma, Brittany Chanel from Illinois, and Lynette V from Iowa, and Pranav Oja from India. Wow. Awesome. And hi from mom. Hi, mom. I'm glad to see you're watching. Oh man. And let's get a couple more here. Jen from Alberta, Robbie Dobby from Nova Scotia, Gina D from Boca Raton, Florida, Shona McMahon from Scotland, and we've got Debbie Faison Cook from Florida as well, and Secret McSquirrel, of course, from Scotland, and Tasana Burfa from Idaho. Okay. All right. So hello to everyone. I really appreciate you guys coming in here and watching. I know that that this trial is not like in the headlines per se. It's not exactly like trending or anything. It's just something that I was super curious to be getting into, because it's one of those trials that, like the intro says, it shaped the public consciousness, right, about the judicial system in the United States. And it's one of those that, like, I feel like, generally speaking, it's like one of those that we should know, for those reasons. So I'm so thrilled that I've got all of you folks that want to watch with me through this whole thing. So for today, I don't know if we're going to have anybody jumping in, because it looks like folks are busy. It's a holiday week. There's a lot going on, which is fine. We can hang out, just you and me. How about that? So, but otherwise, I mean, there might be some people popping in. I don't know. I just haven't gotten confirmation. So, okay. Anyway, with that, how about we should probably get started, shall we? Let's get to the testimony already. All right. Here we go. Okay. So this is, hang on a second. Sorry. This is Perry Berman. I knew I had it. Perry Berman. He is the former tennis coach of, oh man, and I totally forgot my remarkable in the other room. Well, that's okay. I think I'll be fine. Anyway, okay, I'm talking to myself here. Perry Berman, he comes in after the two deputies from last week. We had some great mustaches last week that were, one of whom brought in the shotgun into court. All of us were super worried because we had loaded rounds right next to a shotgun. Didn't want anybody to Alec Baldwin anybody with those live rounds. And understandably, everyone was really nervous. There was a good question as to whether or not that it was proper for the judge to allow him to load as many as he did. I mean, the ones that he loaded, I think, were dummy rounds, if I remember correctly. But anyhow, yeah, the whole purpose was to show, like, the process of what it looks like to load, to unload, all that kind of stuff, and kind of basically like the amount of time that it takes in between all of those. And so, but the noise of it, doing that many, there was a good question as to whether or not it was proper that the judge allowed that. So anyhow, but all good stuff so far. Okay. Anyway, let's get on to today. Let me know if the sound balance is okay also. Okay.
My name is Perry Scott Berman. Berman.
All right, just sit back and relax. All right, Mr. Cignarelli.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Berman, did you know the Menendez family in 1989?
Yes, I did.
When did you meet the family?
In 1985 at the East Brunswick Racket Club in New Jersey.
Do you see members of that family in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
And at counsel table, do you see?
Yes, that's correct.
Just for the record, can you identify those people?
Yes, Erik Menendez and Lyle Menendez.
And you met them in New Jersey in 1985.
Yes.
Would you describe how you met them?
I was an assistant tennis instructor at the East Brunswick Racket Club, East Brunswick Racket Club, and I was coaching Erik Menendez for about a 6-month period.
Was that in 1985?
Yes.
Did you meet other members of the family
Yes, that is correct.
at that time?
Yes.
Who else did you meet?
Mr. Menendez and Mrs. Menendez.
How would Erik Menendez come to your lessons?
Mrs. Menendez would drive him over.
Would Mrs. Menendez stay for the lesson?
Most of the time, if she had to run an errand, she might take off for a little while and come back later.
Did you become familiar with the family?
Yes, more so in California than in New Jersey.
At some point, did the Menendez family move then to California?
Excuse me?
Did the Menendez family move to California?
Yes, that is correct.
And when did that happen?
I believe they moved in 87. I moved in, or maybe they moved in 86. I moved in 87.
Wait, so did he
During the
follow
period
them?
of time that you knew the family in New Jersey from 1985 to either 86 or 87, what kind of context did you have with the family?
I'm sorry, can you
What
repeat
kind
that
of
question?
context did you have with the family
When
when they were living in New Jersey?
basically just at the tennis club.
Other than with Mrs. Menendez, did you have any contact with Mr. Menendez in New Jersey?
There was one incident where I was giving Erik a lesson, and we were working on a certain type of game, more of a power game, serve and volley. And I was feeding him lobs, and fairly easy lobs, so he would gain confidence in his overhead. And Mr. Menendez came running onto the court. Again, East Brunswick Racket Club, it's an indoor structure, and he was behind the window, and he felt that the lesson, I was making it too easy for him. So he basically came down, run all the way to the far court on the right side, and basically started yelling at me, feeling that I was making it too easy for his son. And I tried to explain to him that I wanted him to gain confidence in his overhead, and he basically didn't understand, my reasoning for that, and just basically walked off. Gave me basically a dirty look and walked off the court. And at that point, Erik said, "My father won't be happy until running all over the tennis court, diving for tennis balls."
So he wanted you to be a little bit stricter with Erik and push him harder.
Right, that's correct.
How often would you give him lessons? That is Erik Menendez.
I'd say it was basically like once a week, I believe.
Were there other parents of students that you had that were intense? They wanted their children to excel?
Not to that extent. I mean, there were parents that wanted their children to perform well, but not to that extent.
He was a hard charger.
Yes.
Sometime after either 86 or 87, they moved to, as far as you know, they moved to California?
Yes.
Did you then become acquainted with them in California?
Yes, in the summer of 1988,
And where were they living at that time?
Calabasas.
Did you visit the Calabasas home?
Once.
On that one visit, who was home?
Lyle and I went to the house after we went to a taping of the Johnny Carson show, and then Erik, I believe, came home later that evening, and that was basically it.
The parents were not home?
That's correct.
Sometime after that, did you learn that the family had moved to Beverly Hills?
Yes.
And when approximately was that?
It was in October of 88.
And did you visit the family home?
Yes.
It's a question about Rob.
And
He's
could
at
you
trial
describe
today,
what
so he couldn't make
the
it.
visit was like?
But he said he would be catching the replay. So if you're watching this,
I was
Rob,
living at the
hi.
time in West Hollywood. So to Beverly Hills was a 5-minute drive. And I was going there on a consistent basis. You know, if Lyle was in town, sometimes once a week, sometimes every other week. And we would play tennis. At that point, Lyle was on a circuit. He was basically training, you know, and working on his tennis game. So we would basically get together and, you know, work out. And I've had dinners at the house. Mrs. Menendez would ask me to stay, or Lyle would ask if I'd like to stay and have dinner. And
What was your relationship with Mrs. Menendez? You said she invited you over for dinner?
Mm-hmm, yes. She was very, very cordial. She always would ask how my family was. At that time, they were living in New Jersey, and she knew I was basically out here on my own. I didn't have any family out here, and would ask how, you know, my career was going, and you know, she was very, very pleasant to me.
She would invite you over for dinner?
Yes.
And you would have dinners with the family?
Yes, that's correct.
Seems like he probably would have gotten to know the family fairly well then.
Did you also get to know Mr. Menendez a little better?
Yes.
And that was that here when they lived in Beverly Hills?
In Beverly Hills.
When you had dinners at the Menendez home, would Mr. Menendez and Mrs. Menendez be home?
Yes, they would both be home.
Would you say that you were friendly with the parents as well as with their sons?
I mean, not as friendly. I mean, I would never go out with Mr. and Mrs. Menendez to a movie or to a restaurant. But, you know, I mean, they would always, you know, speak with me when I was, you know, in their house.
Bring you up to 1989. Do you recall sometime late in July or early August having dinner at the Menendez house?
Yes,
At their Beverly Hills home?
that's correct.
Was that at 722 North Elm?
Yes.
Do you recall anything in particular about that, the last time you actually had dinner with the family?
Yes, I was with Lyle prior to dinner, and we were out back on the tennis court, and they had a basketball hoop set up. So we were throwing, you know, shooting some baskets. And he said that his parents were upset with him because there was a letter that was sent from Princeton University regarding a party at the university, and there was a damaged pool table, and Lyle basically took the blame for one of his friends.
And what was the, and who told you this information?
Lyle.
What was the nature of the letter, and who did the letter
the
go
shoulder
to?
pads in the 90s were wild.
Went to his parents.
And this was from the university?
That's correct.
What did Lyle tell you about the letter and how his parents viewed that letter?
He told me again prior to dinner, basically, you know, I just said on the tennis court, we were shooting some baskets, and
What is it in particular that he said, though, about that letter?
that his father was very upset with him, and you know, his parents have spoken to him about it, and they were going to be, you know, having a family meeting maybe later that evening regarding that.
Did the letter have to do with having to pay for this pool table back to the university?
I believe so. I'm not certain about that.
Sometime in early 1989, were you with Lyle when he met a model,
Yes.
a woman by the name of Christy?
Yes, that's correct.
Where did that meeting take place?
We met in the parking lot of a club, lounge, whatever, in Santa Monica. I don't know if it's even still there. DC3 was the name of the club. And
what were the circumstances of the meeting?
Lyle and I were basically going out for the evening. He had a friend in town from New Jersey, and it was late in the week. I don't know, it might have been like a Thursday night or something. And we were going out. We were in the parking lot driving and pulling into the parking lot, and she was in her car pulling away. And
Were you in the same car?
no, I was, at the time I had a Mazda RX-7, and Lyle was in his father's car. It was a Mercedes-Benz sedan.
And as you pulled into this nightclub spot, what happened?
She drove right past me, and as she was going past Lyle kind of waved to her, and she basically turned around and came back, and we all started talking.
As far as you knew, was that the first time that she had ever met either one of you?
Yes, that's correct.
What did she look like?
She was a model.
Very beautiful. She's blonde, around 5'7", blue eyes, very nice figure. She works out. She's very good shape. Very upbeat, very enthusiastic. Very upbeat personality.
Was she
Trish 818, this is the
older than
prosecution.
Lyle?
They're doing direct testimony
yes.
here.
Would you just generally describe what kind of model she was?
She did a lot of print modeling.
Why does
if you're
this
not
matter?
familiar, print is magazine modeling, and maybe, I don't know if she did maybe some billboards, but she did extensive work in print modeling.
At some point in 1989, approximately April or May, first of all, did Lyle date Christy?
Yes, he did.
And how long did that relationship last?
A few months.
At some point, did the relationship end?
Yes, I believe it was the end of April of that year.
Of 1989?
Yes.
And what were the circumstances of that relationship ending?
Mr. Menendez, and again, I was mostly hearing this through Christy, that he didn't approve of
there's a
Lyle
lot of
dating her.
hearsay
She
here.
was
But the defense is probably just letting
8
it
to 10
go
years
because it
older
doesn't
than
matter.
he was, and he felt that, his parents felt that she was felt that she was a gold digger, and that she wasn't right for him.
Did he express that his father and mother had disapproved of that relationship?
Right, and they basically prefer that he ended that relationship.
Did they give him some kind of an ultimatum?
We haven't clarified as to who is giving the witness this information.
Yes. Did you speak to you knew that Lyle was involved in this relationship, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You indicated that there was you got information that
Even
Mr. and Mrs.
just
Menendez.
hang on. Even just like that interruption just like a minute ago was by the judge. There was no objection by the defense here. So this is indicating that the judge is like, okay, like maybe clarify a little bit for the jury here. Defense doesn't give two snickerdoodle cookies about this. Sorry. I'm trying to keep things, within a certain rating system. But like, yeah, they don't give a crap about this, right? Because who cares about this model? Who cares about like what kind of a model she is, a print model, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so it's interesting to me that the judge was the one to kind of interject and be like, okay, hang on. Can you clarify here who we're talking about?
Were not in favor of this relationship, correct?
Right.
And where did you get that information?
Oh, from Christy.
I'm going to bring you farther along, and on the date of August 20th, 1989, did you have some kind of contact with Lyle Menendez?
Yes.
And would you describe for the jurors what took place that particular day?
I had a tennis game early that day, came back home and played my messages. There was a message from Lyle. I called him back.
First of all, approximately what time was it that you got this message?
Around 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
That is, did you go to your answer machine and then get the message at that point?
Yes.
So you don't know what time the call came in?
That is correct. I do not know.
Then what happened?
It was a call from Lyle. I returned the call, spoke to Mr. Menendez. He told me that Lyle was with Erik, and he believed they were at the Beverly Center shopping.
And approximately what time was that call made to Mr. Menendez?
It was right after I received the message from Lyle, so it was around 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Did you had a conversation with Mr. Menendez on that day?
Yes. Basically, I was speaking to Mr. Menendez. At that point, I was in the advertising industry, and I wanted to make a career move into film distribution. And the fact that Mr. Menendez was CEO of Live Entertainment, which is a film distribution company, I felt that he could give me some really, really good advice regarding the industry, and maybe
he was hoping he could get
some
him in. He could be his
contacts
door,
in the business
his
as well.
his open door.
And
into
he
the industry. That's fair.
said
I mean,
that he was
it
going on a
happens.
business trip in the morning, and when he returned, he would call me, and we would get together one evening.
You had that much of a rapport with him that you could contact him in that way.
Yes.
Some time later, did you get a call from Lyle Menendez?
Yes, it was between 4 and 5 o'clock, I believe, in the afternoon.
And what was the nature of that conversation?
That Lyle wanted to get together that evening, and I told him that I had plans to go to the Taste of LA, which is a food festival at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. And I was going with a friend of mine, and then he was more than welcome to join us. We know with Erik, of course.
And how did he respond to that?
He said that he had plans with Erik to go to see Batman.
All right. Managed to get that just in time. So, okay. So we've got our first little commercial break here. And so far there hasn't really been that much. I was kind of thinking there would be more interesting stuff coming out, but I wonder if the defense is going to have even more interesting things to ask him about than the prosecution will, which then that'll raise the question of like, why did the prosecution call this guy? Other than to talk about this model who is, or was at the time, a print model, who at first I was like, who cares? But I guess it does matter what kind of a model she was. You know, I think, who was it in the chat? Somebody made a good point here, that it, you know, it could make a difference between, it was Anna Costello said in the chat, says high fashion versus Sears catalog versus OnlyFans type matters. That makes sense. Although, if you've been following the OnlyFans murder case, you know that some OnlyFans models can really make a lot of money. But regardless, you know, the type of model can make a difference as to what kind of money she's bringing in. So to see if, you know, is she just a pretty girl who happens to be in some kind of things and calls herself a model, or is she a top model, you know, like Heidi Klum or what have you? You know, and so what does that mean about her financial independence? What does that mean for why she's dating Lyle? And so for the parents to approve or disapprove, that kind of thing. So I suppose that, you know, that can make a difference. So there's that. But even still, like with all of that, I suppose what the prosecution is getting at here perhaps is looking at, you know, these are strict parents. Jose would kind of talk to Mr. Berman and say, I mean, not talk to him, but like yell at him and say, you're not being tough enough on my son. You're not like, you know, you're not instilling enough discipline in him, and he needs to be tougher because he needs to be successful. He needs to be number one. And so this kind of like stress on them, plus like that, then with Lyle saying, no, I disapprove of your relationship with this girl, you know, saying that like these boys grew up, these are young men. These young men grew up kind of resenting their parents and then wanted to take them out because of that. Perhaps that's kind of what it seems like they're getting at. And at the same time, this also has the potential effect of creating an impression upon the jury that these guys are not as relatable to the average person, right? Because when you look at who's serving on the jury, it's not people that are living in Beverly Hills. I mean, it could be, in all honesty, there could be somebody living in Beverly Hills, but most likely it's not, because they probably are very well aware of this case and know some details because it's like affecting that whole neighborhood, right, at this time. So, but most likely, it's probably not people that are within that economic bracket. So having you know, this kind of testimony come out about yeah, he's dating models and doing all of this and that. There's going to be testimony that'll come out about their shopping spree after they killed their parents. This kind of stuff helps to sort of like sever that relatability between them and the jury, which is interesting. But anyway, well, also, Kurt, thanks for the super chat. Even though you're advertising by super chat, what the heck? So Uncivil Law says, do you have time to talk about our Lord and Savior NordVPN? NordVPN allows you to change your IP address, making you harder to track. ... Which, of course, this sounds like Kurt has a potential sponsorship with NordVPN, in which case, congratulations, Kurt. I'm very happy for you. So yeah, awesome. Cool. And Kurt, if you want to jump on, I definitely sent you a link to join in if you have time. No worries if you don't though. Otherwise, let's continue on with the testimony.
And did you agree to meet sometime later that night?
Lyle said that he would come after the movie was over, that the two boys, Lyle and Eric, would go to the Taste of LA around 9:30 that evening. And I stayed until about 10:15. It was a sunny evening. They were basically closing up all of the concessions. A lot of people were leaving. And my friend Todd and I just basically left. We couldn't find them. We left. Came back to my place. Todd went home from there. And then I got a call from Lyle around.
Another question.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay, Kurt.
First of all, you waited at the Taste of LA in Santa Monica until about 10:15
Yes.
at night?
It is
And you were
hilarious.
with your friend Todd Hall?
That is correct.
Okay, and you didn't see Lyle Menendez or his brother Eric that whole night at the Taste of LA?
No.
Ooh, congrats,
Sometime
Kurt.
later,
Congrats, 120K.
you arrived home. How long did it take you to get home from Santa Monica?
About half an hour.
And you were living where then?
In West Hollywood.
In the Taste of LA in Santa Monica, was that at the Santa Monica Civic
Auditorium, yes.
Sometime after 11, did you get a call from Lyle Menendez?
Yes.
And what was the nature of that call?
Lyle, I asked him what happened to him, and he said basically they got lost and they got there later than they anticipated. He was, at that point, he said he was calling from the Taste of LA, and he wanted to get together that evening. And I told him that I was getting ready to go to sleep. I had work the next morning, and I'd prefer to wait till Monday or Tuesday night to have dinner, or buy tea or something like that. And he was very persistent that he wanted to get together that evening to discuss his plans to go back to Princeton University in the fall and to talk about his tennis game.
He had to meet you that night.
Yes.
Did he tell you where he wanted to meet?
I basically said, fine, if it's that important to you, we can meet at the Cheesecake Factory in Beverly Hills, which from West Hollywood is maybe a 10-minute drive. And I told him I would meet him there in about a half an hour, which meant it would be like 11:45.
Did he indicate to you that he wanted you to come to his house?
I hung up the phone with him. He called back a few minutes later, within 5 minutes, and asked if it'd be better if I came by the house in Beverly Hills, because Eric wanted to pick up like a phony ID so he could, so if he wanted to have a few cocktails, he would be able to. And I told him that I was not going to go by the house, that it was late, and I just said, I'll give you an additional 5 minutes, pick up the ID, and then I would meet him, at the Cheesecake Factory.
Did you then go to the Cheesecake Factory?
Yes.
Did you ever see him that night?
No.
What time was he supposed to meet you at the Cheesecake Factory?
About 11:45.
Did Lyle Menendez tell you what
Kimberly
time he
Ratzlaff,
arrived
yes.
at the Taste of LA
I am going
that
to be
night when
covering
he called
the
you
OnlyFans
sometime after 11?
murder trial.
I believe it was listed a little after
Should
10.
be live streamed,
10,
and I'll be
15.
live streaming it.
That he
Gavel to
arrived
gavel.
at the Taste of LA?
Right.
Did he ask you where you were?
I told him I was, he asked, and I told him I was basically out there looking for him.
you. I have nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Berman, what time did you say you left the Taste of LA?
About 10:15,
And
10, maybe 10:20, it's around that area.
And when you spoke with Lyle Menendez on the phone, he said he got there around 10:15.
Yes.
And can you describe what the Taste of LA is like? Is this inside or outside?
It's an outdoor festival, and they have concessions, like booths, one after another, of different restaurants in LA where you can go and sample the different entrees of those restaurants.
And is this in the outdoor area behind the Santa Monica Civic?
Yes, that's correct.
And are there rows of these booths?
Yes,
And then a lot of people milling around going from booth to booth?
that's correct.
And was it fairly crowded the night that you were there?
Yes.
And when you received this call from Lyle at around 11 o'clock, was there anything unusual about the way he sounded, about his voice?
Yes, he seemed excited. It's really hard to describe. It's like excited and a little jumpy, I would say, at the same time.
At the grand jury, you used the word anxious.
Anxious, right? Anxious.
Does that seem to fit the way he
Yes.
sounded? And was that different from the way he sounded on the phone normally?
Yes.
How long have you known him?
Since again, it was probably late 1984, early 1985, and that was in New Jersey.
And you were his brother's coach, is that correct?
Yes,
But you got to be friends with Lyle?
that's correct.
And were you friends with him both back east and then when you moved out here? or-
No, more so in California.
And would you see him fairly regularly out here?
Totally
Yes,
agree.
if he
This
was
guy
in
looks
back
like Aaron
east
Eckhart.
and he was in Los Angeles, I would see him on a consistent basis.
You told us about
Anna Costello, she's
an
supposed to leave
incident,
because she's on cross-examination now.
with Erik Menendez, in
So
which his
leading
father
questions are entirely proper
interfered
and
in the
recommended.
teaching that you were doing.
Yes,
Now, is that something that happens a lot with parents who are very concerned about the progress of their children?
it has never happened prior to that, nor has it happened after that.
How long have you been coaching?
I've been coaching
Dreaming
since
Teach. His
I was
name is
18 years
Terry
old, so it
Berman.
was about 15 years ago,
Okay.
since the late 70s.
Did you consider that a really surprising or shocking
Yes,
incident?
yes, definitely shocking.
In what way?
I feel that parents really don't have the right to do that. They should guide their children and be there for them, and want them to excel if that's what the child wishes. But I feel it was borderline being a little too demanding of a parent.
Okay.
Yeah.
You must have encountered other very involved tennis parents in your career. Is that
Yes,
true?
That's correct.
And have you encountered a number of tennis parents who are very interested in the progress of their children and want to know what's going on and try to get very involved?
Yes.
And what was the difference between those parents and Mr. Menendez?
The other parents don't come running on tennis courts, yelling at tennis coaches or yelling at me.
That's just something that isn't done?
I've never experienced that before.
Okay. And what was Erik's response to that?
I'm sorry, what was?
What was Erik's response to his father's behavior? Did he laugh about it? Did he think it was funny?
No. He was upset about it. I think a little embarrassed by it.
Okay. And it made quite an impression on you, I take it.
Right.
When you would visit the Menendez home, did you find this to be kind of a relaxed, easygoing, warm environment, or did you sense other emotions?
Other emotions at times, yes.
What other emotions did you sense?
I feel that Mr. Menendez ran his home as though it was a company and he was the chairman of the board. He's very strict with the boys. He wanted to have control in every aspect of their lives, either academically, socially, with tennis. The girls they decided, they wanted to go out with, the schools they selected, universities they selected.
When you say they selected, who selected the universities and the girlfriends?
Mr. Menendez,
And was there tension in that home?
yes.
You told us about a young woman who you referred to as Christy.
Yes.
And you knew Lyle and Christy during the time they were dating?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
You knew both Lyle and Christy during the time they were dating?
Yes.
And you've told us that Mr. Menendez thought that she was too old and was a gold digger. Is
That's
that correct?
correct.
And had you heard him make similar comments about other girlfriends or another girlfriend whom Lyle had had?
Yes.
Which girlfriend was that?
Jamie.
And was it your understanding that Mr. Menendez required that Lyle end the relationship with Christy?
Yes.
And have you continued to be friends with her?
With Christy? Yes, I see her occasionally. We live in the same neighborhood, so we'll run into each other.
She's a nice young woman.
Yeah, very nice.
The night that you were there for dinner, and I think you talked about shooting baskets with Lyle.
Mhm.
And there was an incident, he expressed some concern to you about a pool table that had gotten destroyed at a party back in Princeton.
Right.
And I think you told us that he said he had taken the blame for a friend of his in that.
Yes, that's correct.
Do you remember the name of that friend?
Hayden.
And when you had dinner at the home that night, was it a relaxed, friendly meal?
No, it was very, very tense. Basically, Mr. Menendez asked me a few questions about how work was going and about my family back in New Jersey. And I basically responded, and that was about the extent of it. Lyle and Eric really didn't speak during that dinner. And Mrs. Menendez might have asked, how everything was going, and that's about it.
What happened after dinner?
Directly following dinner, Lyle and I walked to the family room, and he walked back. He excused himself, walked back, and he had to speak to his parents. And he came right back, and he said, "I'm sorry, you're gonna have to leave. We're having a family meeting now," and basically just went on my way.
And did you have any information about what happened at the family meeting? Did you see or hear anything after you walked out the door?
When I walked out the door, they were getting ready for their meeting. It was, I believe, Mr. Menendez's library, which is the front room. And I came over on my mountain bike, which was basically leaning against the front wall. And I could basically look in and see that they were getting ready for a meeting in Mr. Menendez's library.
And what was the atmosphere, if you could tell?
It was very, very tense.
You made the comment that that the feeling of this family was that Mr. Menendez ran it as a business, and that there was some tension there. Did you have any sense of secrecy in that family?
Objection, also speculation. Do you understand the question?
I do understand it.
Yeah, do you have such a thing?
No, I do not.
Do you remember telling Detective Zoller?
Objection. Okay.
All right. So we've got another break here. So, okay. I mean, so far, I don't know. There's not much coming up in cross-examination either on this one. Other than that, he almost feels like he's more of a defense-friendly witness, right? Like he seems like he kind of feels for Erik and Lyle. I mean, he must have developed a close relationship with them. over the years. You know, he definitely, him characterizing the way that Jose Menendez ran the family was like as if it's some kind of a company and he's the chairman of the board. That's pretty telling, right? And the thing is that like the prosecution was creating this narrative of like, you know, the boys probably resent their parents and whatnot because of the way that they are controlled and everything. But I feel like that can cut either way, especially when you have this abuse narrative that the defense is developing as well. So, all right, let's continue on.
Did you review all of the reports today? Did Mr. Furlong
Yes.
show you the reports of the rendering testimony? So this is the November 7th report in which you're interviewed by Detectives Linehan and Zoller.
Mhm.
And I'm directing your attention to page.
We spoke here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Okay.
Mike, Elaine.
Okay, let's try it. Is that better?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm showing you a police report dated November 7th, 1989, in which you were interviewed by Detectives Linehan and Zoller. And have you looked at this report before?
Yes, I have.
And did you review it today?
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay,
Is this the report that,
this is one of the reports
Report
Mr. Kuriyama gave you today, I believe. Okay, and I'd like you to read to yourself. This the last paragraph, starting with the second sentence.
to, wait, before going in here?
Just write down that
Really good.
to outsource.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Now, my question is whether you believe that this is a family that would keep their family
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
whether you believe that this is a,
Objection?
If you wanted to ask the witness to,
does this refresh your recollection as to whether this is a family that kept
Objection.
secrets?
that's not the question.
I'm sorry, could I have the question back? I don't remember exactly how it phrased.
If the reporter could find a question that was asked before going to the bench.
So what's happening here is the reason why she put that paper in front of him was to refresh his recollection. It's not because she's introducing evidence through him. So in order to smoothly go back into testimony, she has to ask him, does this refresh your recollection as to whatever it was that she asked him before she put the paper in front of him? But she's
You made the comment that the feeling of this family was that Mr. Menendez ran it as a business and that there was some tension there. Did you have any sense of secrecy in that family?
any sense of secrecy in that family. She forgot the question was the problem.
Having read the document I just gave you, does that refresh your recollection as to whether there was a feeling of secrecy in that family?
There you go.
Yes.
And was there?
Yes. Right. I believe that they kept a lot was what was going on. If there were any problems, they would keep it to themselves. Right.
When you talked to Lyle earlier in the day, or when you got his message earlier in the day, you said you had been out?
Yes, that's correct.
And what time had you left the house that morning?
I believe it was around 10:30.
And you got back at 1 in
1
the
o'clock.
afternoon?
Yes,
And so the phone call came in at some time between those hours?
that is correct.
And was there anything unusual about the way his voice sounded on the message?
No,
And was there anything unusual about the way he sounded when you spoke to him and made the plans to go out that night?
no.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Any cross-examination by the co-defendant? Yes.
Yeah, that first cross-examination, it didn't feel like it was really drawing much from him. Which, I mean, not every witness is going to be a spectacular witness for either case, right?
No, Your Honor, we have no questions at this time.
Any redirect?
Thank you. Mr. Berman, do you remember testifying at the grand jury?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember testifying as to your feelings on Mrs. Menendez?
Yes.
And how did you relate how you felt about Mrs. Menendez? Your impression?
This is not an area that we're going to cross-examination. It's already covered it on the
Did you intend to go into some new area that you had not covered on the record?
I did ask questions, I believe. Well,
Are you asking
Yes.
to reopen is what you're?
yes,
Okay, you'll be permitted to do that.
thank you. Did you have an impression about Mrs. Menendez?
Yes.
What was that?
She was she's a very sweet, caring woman. She basically allowed Mr. Menendez to run his house the way he felt, necessary. I don't think she really stepped in between Mr. Menendez and the boys.
Would you say that Mr. Menendez was a disciplinarian?
Yes.
When you say that the family may have had secrets, when you were there the last time for dinner with the Menendez family, and Lyle Menendez had told you that his parents had gotten a letter about this pool table that was ruined, and that his parents were not pleased with him. And his parents then, he came to you later that night after you had eaten and said, we're going to have a family meeting. Can you leave? Is that what you mean, that things of that nature would be talked among themselves as a family?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. No further questions.
Anything else?
Just briefly.
Brief recross.
This meeting that we're talking about, the pool table meeting. Now, was it your impression that Lyle had done something wrong, or he had just taken the blame for somebody else?
That he had taken the blame for somebody else.
Okay. And did you have the impression that this family wanted the outside world to not have any information about any flaws or problems that they had?
Right, that is correct.
And did you have the impression that this family was very concerned about what their public image was?
Sustained.
Did you have the impression that the reason that they didn't want to discuss things in front of people who had been friends for years was because they didn't want anybody else to know if there were problems in the family?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Your Honor, I believe that that's a follow-up on his question.
Counsel, it just calls for speculation on the part of the witness. Objection sustained.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's asking him about what other people thought,
All right, anything else?
what other people knew.
Okay, then you may step down. You're excused. Nancy, counsel
All
at
right.
the sidebar just for a moment.
So that is the end of this witness. Okay, so basically what came out was, you can kind of get more of a feel for it when you start to see redirect and recross, is that the defense definitely wants to characterize this family as a very splintered family, as no one talks to anyone. It's everyone is hush hush about their problems, even within the family, certainly outside of the family. And it's like the splintered sort of family. The prosecution wants to make it seem like, okay, Jose Menendez is tough on his sons. He's very demanding and all that kind of stuff, or he was, I should say, was very demanding on his sons, but they would have family meetings. This is a sign of health, right? Talking through problems, working through problems, discussing things. And it's I saw some people in the chat talking about like family meetings, like I don't know, some alarm about it. But growing up, I don't know about you guys, but my family had family meetings. We had a rule that anyone in the family could call a family meeting if they ever wanted to. I don't think anyone other than my parents ever did call a family meeting, come to think of it. But like that was a rule that like we all knew we were allowed to have, and everyone would have to come in and we'd have to discuss the thing that the person wanted to discuss to resolve the thing, right? And it can be a very healthy tool. It can also be a way of I don't know, confronting someone, putting pressure on someone, in the family, especially if it's in the way in which it seems like the Menendez family was doing it. That's, based on what we're hearing so far. So yeah, I don't know, but anyhow, but if I'm sure that the prosecution here is looking at this situation and saying like, okay, well, just how splintered was this family if they were having these family meetings to discuss these things, like, right? Like understandably, parents would be upset if their college-age son broke a pool table that was a gift for, his college, housing decoration or whatever, what have you, right? Like those things can't be too inexpensive, right? I have no idea how much a pool table will cost. I've never looked at buying one. But I would imagine that it probably costs a decent amount of money, especially in the 90s. But anyway, so it's understandable that parents would be upset about their college-age son breaking it, but it is interesting to see that the explanation from Perry Berman, the witness here, is that the story that he was getting from Lyle was, well, I'm taking the blame for my friend. I don't want my friend to get punished for, for this whole thing. So he's really taking the heat on behalf of his friend. No idea if the parents ever learned of that, or if that was even the truth in the first place. But this is an interesting, I guess, just another kind of window into the culture of the family, I suppose. Okay. Now we're going to get into the majority of today's testimony, which is going to be the testimony of Craig Cignarelli. This is the best friend of Erik Menendez. And this is the one that is, there's the prosecution really wants to talk about this screenplay that the two of them kind of co-wrote here. It'll be interesting to see what comes out on direct, what comes out on cross-examination. And yeah. So, okay, let's get into this one now.
And the people are represented, and the jury is in the jury box. Belated good morning to you all. I'm sorry for the delay, but there were some matters that required the attorneys and I to discuss them in more detail than I had anticipated, but we're now finished with that, and we're now ready to proceed with the testimony. Before I do that, let me ask the jurors here in the Erik Menendez jury, whether or not any of you have seen or read or heard of anything about this case in the news media or anywhere else since the trial started. Anybody?
Bueller?
Okay. All right,
Bueller?
then the people may call their next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. People call Craig Cignarelli.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and nothing but spell your last name.
Cignarelli.
All right, just sit back and relax. And perhaps we can have the microphone adjusted a little bit for him. You need that, okay. All right, we'll just hold it. Okay. We're ready to proceed. Mr. Carrillo.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Cignarelli, do you know the defendant in this case, Erik Menendez?
Yes.
And when did you first meet him?
My junior year in high school, his sophomore year, which was 1987.
And what were the circumstances of your meeting him?
We were, he came to the school and he was a tennis player, and I found out he was a tennis player and knew he was going to be on the team.
He
And,
does look like a Chandler
just-
Bing.
I walked up and met him, and we became
Just a
buddies
little bit of
almost
a rounder
instantly.
face.
Were you also a tennis player?
Yes,
Were you the captain of the team?
yes.
And what year was that?
1988.
So you struck up a friendship with Erik Menendez?
Correct.
What sorts of activities
So
would
today's
you
theme is
do
tennis,
with Erik Menendez
apparently.
besides the actual tennis practices?
We'd go to tournaments together. We'd go up in the hills and talk about. Sorry. Talk about dreams for the future, plans for business opportunities, and
If you hear some
girls,
zebra sounds,
everything.
Andy is dreaming
When
on
you
the
say
floor
you
next
go
to
up to the
me.
hills, what do you
So
mean by
she's
that?
making
we used to drive up into the
Funny
hills.
yipping
A
noises.
place we used to have, which looked over the ocean and the valleys, and just kind of get away from everything that was happening in society and try to dream of a better ideology for the future.
Where was this location?
Up off Mulholland, up in the hills.
Can you be a little bit more specific as to where this?
Up Stunt Road and a dirt hill about 150 paces off the road.
How often would you go with Erik Menendez to this location?
I don't know, several times during the years we knew each other, probably 10 times, 15 times.
You indicated that you discussed business aspirations.
Correct.
What sorts of aspirations did Erik Menendez relate to you?
We wanted to start a company which was multifaceted and dealt in inventions and screenwriting and I hate
Inventions
to use the
and
analogy, but
screenwriting?
similar to a Billionaire Boys Club type thing with
Your Honor, I would
Everything.
object to move to strike. It has to approach.
The objection is sustained, the answer is stricken, the entire answer is stricken, and the jury is admonished to disregard it, which means you should not pay any attention to the answer and disregard it. And
Don't think about purple elephants, guys.
Without
That's
giving
always the
this,
effect of striking something from the record.
business a name,
Pay no attention to
what
the man
sort of
behind the
business
curtain.
was it?
a multifaceted corporation.
In dealing in what?
Just about everything. I'm a
Tally, that probably was the
stocks,
problem
inventions,
with his response.
screenplays,
Pretty
corporate
prejudicial.
takeovers, anything we could do to develop our status in society.
Would you say that you had a very close friendship with Erik Menendez?
Yeah, we were best friends for 2.5 years.
That business plan sounds like a
From
plan for people that
1987
don't understand
to
anything about
1989?
business.
Correct. Well, yeah.
At some point, Erik Menendez moved to Beverly Hills.
Correct. Yeah.
And at that point, when Erik Menendez moved to Beverly Hills, where were you staying?
I was in Santa Barbara going to school.
At UC Santa Barbara?
UC Santa Barbara. Yeah.
So you indicated that you're a year older than
Correct.
Erik Menendez. Did you see Erik Menendez at the Beverly Hills house?
Yes, went down there a couple times.
Did you have any information about Erik's plans to be an actor?
Yeah, well, we used to write the screenplays with the intent of him becoming an actor. And he said he won Best Actor in Drama at his high school.
Your Honor, move to strike.
objection is sustained after yes, everything else in the answer is
So this-
stricken.
There
It's not
probably
responsive.
are motions in limine on some of these topics.
Did he indicate
That
to
they've
you that he
already
had taken a
talked
class
about?
at Beverly Hills High School?
Yes.
And did he indicate anything further to you about his acting aspirations?
Your Honor, I would object to this whole line of testimony with respect to being irrelevant.
Objection overruled, but can we go back to what class it is that you're referring to, Mr. Kuriyama?
What class did Erik Menendez indicate to you that he took at Beverly Hills High School?
Well, several, but a drama class, I believe, is
With
what you're looking
respect,
for.
with respect to the drama class, did he indicate to you that he had won an award for acting?
He said he won the Best Acting Award in Drama.
At some point in August of 1989, did you become aware of the deaths of Jose and Mary Menendez?
Yes.
And how did you become aware of the deaths?
I got a phone call from one of my old tennis coaches. He called me in the morning and asked if
Object, Your Honor, is hearsay?
All right, the objection is sustained, but the answer will stand. He has answered the question, and you may ask your next question.
Thank you, Your Honor. After learning of the deaths of Mr. and Mrs. Menendez, did you take any steps to contact Erik Menendez?
yes,
What did you do?
called him that day.
And did you actually talk to Erik Menendez?
No, I got the answering machine.
Did you at some point thereafter have phone contact with Erik Menendez?
He had a friend call me back, and then I spoke with him. He had a friend call me back.
Okay, and after this friend called you back, did you have a phone conversation with Erik Menendez?
I don't believe so.
Sometime later, did you have a phone conversation with Erik Menendez?
I don't recall.
Did you at some point actually meet with Erik Menendez sometime shortly after the deaths of his parents?
Yes.
Overruled. Overruled.
Yes, about a week and a half after.
And would you describe for the jurors what took place? Did you actually go to his house?
I went down to the Beverly Hills house and was there as a best friend just to kind of hang out with him, make sure everything was okay.
Objection not responsible.
She
Overall,
does
the answer
not
will
like
stand.
his testimony.
Now, when you went to
The objections are flying on
Menendez
this one.
home in
Compare it to
Beverly Hills,
last time
who was
with the
there
last
when
witness.
you arrived?
Silence.
When I arrived, Erik and several security guards.
Do you recall how many security guards there were?
No, several.
Were they carrying guns?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance?
Overruled.
I believe so, yes.
Do you recall what day of the week it was that you went to see Erik Menendez shortly after the killings?
I think it was a Friday.
Do you recall anything noteworthy that occurred on that first day that you were there? Were there any visitors to the Menendez house when you were there?
Yeah, there was somebody who came to look at the computer upstairs.
Do you recall, was it a male or a female?
It was a male with a pregnant wife.
Did did Erik talk to this person, this computer person?
Yes, we both did.
Now, at some point, did the person actually go to a computer?
Yeah, he went to the computer in the parents' bedroom.
What did you and Erik do at that time?
We were with him.
Went upstairs as well?
Yes.
Upstairs, was there a conversation between yourself and Erik Menendez?
A little bit, yes.
Do you recall what was being discussed?
We were talking about a will that the computer guy was looking for.
Computer guy was looking
Erik
for a
Menendez
will.
told you that?
Yes.
Did
This
he
is
say anything else about a will?
central to the
He said
prosecution's
that
theory.
his brother had someone come up and erase a family will, or had a computer expert come up and erase the family will, and
Computer
that
expert.
he knew that if it's not professionally done, that there's still access inside the computer, and that's why he was having this guy come up and
Well,
try to find it.
Did you know that it was Carlos Menendez, a relative, who hired that particular computer expert?
No.
Objection is sustained as to the form of the questions under who you're referring to, and the answer is second.
Okay. Mr. Cignarelli, did you actually know who had hired this particular expert that you saw that day?
That day,
Yes. Do you know?
Erik said that he had somebody come up. I don't know for sure who hired him, no.
Now, during the course of this expert accessing the computer, what other conversation took place between you and Erik Menendez?
He explained that the will, the original will that this expert was looking for was supposed to be the one that his father was retyping. It's the old will, he said, left all the money to the kids, and that this new will that he had thought Lyle had erased was supposed to leave some money to the company, some money to the kids, and some money to somewhere else. I don't remember who.
Central to
Did
the
you express an
prosecution's theory
interest
here.
in seeing whether or not it was still on the computer?
Yes.
Will? Do you remember approximately how long it was that the computer expert and his pregnant wife were there?
A couple hours probably.
Now, this day that the computer expert came, was that the first day that you had been with Erik Menendez
Right, correct.
after the killings?
Correct.
What happened after the computer expert left? What did you and Erik do?
Just hung out at the house. I don't know if it was that day or the next day that we went out to lunch.
Okay, did you actually spend the night at Erik Menendez's house?
Yeah. Yes.
Did you spend the entire weekend over there?
I don't recall if I spent, I know I spent one night. I don't remember in the second one.
Okay, so would that have been a Friday night that you spent there?
Correct.
Into the next day, the Saturday following?
Right.
At some point during your visit with Erik Menendez, did he ever talk about the killings?
Yes.
Would you describe for the jurors what he told you and what the circumstances were, where you were?
We were walking, do you have a diagram? We were in the foyer.
And this is Exhibit 6, is that right?
Mr. Cignarelli, direct your attention to Exhibit 6.
Wow, that background noise is awful.
Diagram, sir?
Yes, bottom level.
And the image of
Menendez
this
house.
diagram sucks.
And you've been over to that house.
Yes.
Would you describe where you were when Erik Menendez explained to you what happened?
Yes.
Or pointed? Okay.
It's in between the entryway and the family room. So the foyer, I guess you call it.
The witness has pointed to an area which is just above where the stairs are designated in front of the family room as well as the dining room. Is that the area?
Correct.
Finally. Good Lord.
Now, were you both standing there?
Yes.
Was there anyone else there?
No. Well, the security guards may have been there. Outside, yes. But we're not in the present area.
What did he tell you that?
He said, "Do you want to know how it happened?" And I said yes, and I wasn't really sure where we're going with it. And do I have to talk into the mic?
It would be better if you did.
All right. Does it come out? Okay. He said that he was coming home from. He was coming home.
Just tell us what was said.
He said he was coming home from a movie, and that he was going inside to get his ID, fake ID, to go out to the bars. And he said he went inside and he came back.
Objection sustained. You don't have to tell us what was shown to you on a diagram. Just tell us what was said. Okay?
All right. He said that he went back outside and his brother was standing there with two shotguns and said, "Let's do it." And they walked inside, and Lyle was standing, or Erik went up to the door on the left, which was slightly open, and the door on the right, Lyle went up and put his shoulder against the door on the right. And Erik said he looked in and saw his parents sitting on the couch, and Lyle swung the door open and shot his father and looked at Erik and said, "Shoot, Mom." And Erik said he shot his mom as she was standing up and yelling.
Whoa. Whoa.
What was he doing at this point? Was he emotional at this point, or was it matter of fact? Could you describe for the jurors how he related this story?
Just probably a little less nervous than I just did. Just, casual and kind of a low tone of voice. Just in like conversation tone.
Did he, at that point, tell you that they were shotguns, or did he just say guns?
Just guns.
Did he indicate to you where Lyle was with these guns?
Outside.
So it's your understanding that they came from the outside and came back inside and then entered the family room?
Correct.
Yes, this wouldn't have been hearsay because this is a
else
statement
did he
by
tell
the
you about
defendants
this,
that is against their own interests.
What happened that night?
So it
That was it.
doesn't fall
We just
into the definition
Went
of
on with
hearsay.
conversation after that.
What other topics did you discuss that night?
I don't really remember. I think we played a game of chess after that sometime.
We
And,
casually played a game of chess after this.
We had dinner. Someone brought over dinner. And I don't remember, really.
Did Erik Menendez ever tell you that he acted in self-defense?
No.
I can see why Leslie Abramson
Did he
was
ever tell you
objecting
that
like
he
hell and
was
why she
being
seems
abused
like
by
she
his
doesn't like
parents?
him at all.
No.
And to clarify, the hearsay is not just because it's a statement by the defendant, it's a statement against his own interests by the defendant.
Sometime after this this night or this weekend, did you have further conversations with Erik Menendez?
Yes.
And in those further conversations after this one,
Yeah, exactly,
Did he
Mackenzie. Like
indicate to you
he's not
anything
worried
that
for
was
himself?
inconsistent
I'm confused.
with
A
his
little bit
statement to
confused
you
by
that
this.
he and Lyle killed their parents?
No, I'm gonna object to the question.
Objection sustained. Conclusion on part of the witness.
Did Erik Menendez ever tell you that other people were involved in the killing of his parents?
I'm gonna object again, Your Honor, it's leaving.
Overall.
Give me the answer.
He didn't say that other people were involved. He said they thought they were involved, that somebody else did it, and that. You want me to keep going?
Who, for example, according to Erik Menendez?
He said he thought it might be mob related or someone from the company.
Wait. What?
Times when this occurred.
Yes. Do you recall approximately when this was that you had these further conversations with Erik Menendez?
We went out to dinner one night at Gladstone's a couple months after.
Was that November 29th of 1989?
I don't recall the exact date.
Did he admit that
Did
he
you,
did them, or did he say
meet with
think
the
that they were
police
mob related?
shortly
I'm
before
confused.
that conversation of November 29th, 1989? Did you meet with Detective Zoller?
Yes.
Was that approximately November 17th of 1989?
I don't know for sure. It was, shortly before.
And did you give Detective Zoller certain information that you had received from Erik Menendez?
Yes.
Okay, Nicole. So I'm not the only one here.
You're saying no foundation.
Objection overruled. The actual statement.
Did you, prior to the November 29th, 1989 conversation, make arrangements with the Beverly Hills Police Department to wear a body wire at a meeting that you would have with Erik Menendez?
Yes.
And did you, in fact, wear a body wire for the conversation which took place on November 29th, 1989 at Gladstone's restaurant in
Yes.
Malibu? Mr. Cignarelli, on the date that the computer expert came with his pregnant wife, and you had a conversation with Erik Menendez, did Erik Menendez indicate to you when it was that Lyle Menendez had someone erase the computer?
He indicated, but I don't remember.
In which high school was it that you met Erik Menendez?
At Calabasas High School.
And this location that you and Erik Menendez would go to talk about things, What city was that in?
I think Calabasas. It's up in the hills. What's now Calabasas?
Thank you. I have nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Ooh, this is going to be a long one, I think.
Mr. Cignarelli, you're a student now at the University of California, Santa Barbara,
Correct.
and you
Ooh,
began
already
your studies
cool.
there, I take it, in the fall of 1988.
Correct.
You were a year ahead of Erik at Calabasas High School.
Correct.
Now, when Erik, do you recall what month it was and what year it was when you first met Erik at Calabasas?
No, I remember it was his sophomore year, my junior year.
Okay. And the school year begins, does it not, in September?
Correct.
Do you think you met him in the fall semester of your junior year?
Don't recall, actually.
When does the tennis team start practicing at Calabasas? What time of year?
February?
And therefore, if someone new was coming to the school who was qualified to be on the team, would he actually get to meet the team members in practice before February, or is February when it would begin?
Well, on February is when the actual tennis team begins, but you can meet people beforehand at the tennis club or just playing on practice courts outside.
Now, when you say the tennis club, is that the school's tennis club or is that a private tennis club in the neighborhood?
Private tennis club in the neighborhood.
And was there a particular tennis club that both you and Erik went to and played at?
Yes, Calabasas.
Okay, now you tend to talk very fast, so try to slow down. Calabasas Tennis Club, right?
Yes.
And was that a place where a number of the members of the Calabasas high school tennis team played after school?
Yes.
And do you think it's there or at school that you first met Erik?
I believe it was at school.
And when you first met him, I believe you said you heard that he was a tennis player and that he was likely to be on the team?
Yes.
Are the members of the team ranked? Like, is there a number one player, a number two player, etc.?
Yes.
At the time when you first met Erik, before he actually played on the team, what was your ranking?
I was, I think, number one doubles. They rank him in singles and doubles, and then the order rotates depending on how the other schools rank their players.
Okay, were you ever number one singles?
I don't believe so. I might have played a few matches at that, but I don't believe so.
Was Erik ever number one singles?
After he went to join the team, yeah.
Was he always
After he joined the team, yes.
Was he always number one singles after he joined the team for as long as he was at Calabasas?
No.
Was there a time when he injured his foot and couldn't play for the team?
I believe so, yes.
And of course, if you can't play, you can't be number one singles, I take it.
Correct. You can still hold the ranking, but you can't play the position.
Right.
Seems like she's trying to get get at some timing issues here, maybe, of some of these conversations that they may have had.
So you would see Erik at the tennis club and at school, I take it, and then the two of you would do things apart from those activities together.
Correct.
Were you in any classes with Erik?
No, he was a junior. I was a senior. Or a sophomore and junior. We were a year apart.
And did you receive tennis coaching outside of school?
Not on a consistent basis.
Were you familiar with the coaches at the Calabasas Tennis Club?
Yeah.
Yes.
What are we getting at?
Do you know a coach from there named Doug Doss?
Yes.
And did Erik appear to know Doug Doss?
Yes.
I think you indicated that you went to tennis tournaments with Erik. Was that team tournaments?
No, well, yes, team tournaments and regular USTA tournaments, which are just for California rankings.
Okay, let's define a few things. USTA is the United States Tennis Association,
Correct.
and certain
might be right.
players,
This might be
without getting into the details,
The point here.
whether they play on school teams or
SD
not, can
Chucky girl.
compete in USTA-sponsored tennis tournaments all over the country.
Correct.
And Erik played in tournaments in California, USTA tournaments in California.
That's right.
Did you?
Yes.
Now, did you ever observe Erik's parents at any of the tennis tournaments?
Yes.
Did you ever observe his father screaming on the tennis court?
Ooh.
You mean at the tournaments on the court or just from
Well,
the
let's break it
sidelines?
down. First of all, did you ever see his father emotional or screaming at the tournaments?
Not screaming, but saying you need to do better.
Being critical of Erik?
Yes.
And did you see his father on tennis courts not part of tournaments when Erik was playing?
Yes.
And did you ever see him screaming on those occasions?
Not screaming, no.
What would you see?
Just criticizing and pushing him to do better, like most parents.
So your experience is most parents criticize and push their kids to do better. Is that what you're saying?
Most parents push their kids to do better, yes.
Do most parents criticize in front of other people?
Around Calabasas, yes.
Tough parents in Calabasas.
All right, counsel, let's not editorialize. No question.
Did you?
Counsel, let's not editorialize. He's right, though.
Just a moment. Troy.
Yeah, it's based on what we've heard from other witnesses about
Were
Jose
there
Menendez.
other
I don't
friends
really
that were
buy
on
what
the
he's
tennis team
saying. That
that
he's
were
like,
mutual
oh, he
friends
does
of
what any
yours
other
and
parent
Eric's?
does.
Yes.
And was one of those people a young man named Stephen Einbinder?
Yes.
Who were the others?
John List, Mark Lipsky, Jason Kikugawa, Steve Davis, Jason Nettleman.
Now, were you friends, apart from being tennis co-teammates with these young men, were you friends with any of them, any special friend with any of them?
Sure. Yes.
And who among them were your special friends? All of them?
All of them, yeah. I mean, we all went out to dinner all the time and we're just as a team.
Now, when you first met Erik, you think it might have been 87, the spring semester, rather than 86, the fall semester?
It might have been, yeah.
Okay. When you first met him, did he have a girlfriend?
Not that I remember, no.
Did he ultimately have a girl named Kirsten?
Yes.
And was she a tennis player also?
Yes. At Thousand Oaks.
Not at Calabasas High School.
No.
But she was at the tennis club, wasn't she?
That's correct, yeah.
You said that you and Erik went to tournaments together. Did you travel together or did you just wind up at the same tournaments?
We wound up at the same tournaments and we probably went to a couple together, traveling together.
Did your family travel with you to tournaments?
My mom did once in a while.
Did Erik's family travel with him?
I think once in a while.
About the same?
I don't know. I went to play.
Okay, so you weren't noticing whose parents were there or
No.
whose family members?
Not really, no.
Now, you said you and Erik also spent some time during the course of your friendship dreaming of the future.
Correct.
What did you want to do with your future?
I still have intentions of embarking.
Well, no, I want you to understand the question. I'm not asking you now. I'm saying going back in time then to 87, 88.
I don't care
when
about what you
era,
want.
What were your dreams then for the future?
Like I said, I still have intentions of embarking upon a political career. Back then, it was also having a side hobby, writing law screenplays, and definitely going to law school and hopefully practicing for a couple years before politics.
So your ambitions then, which are quite lofty, are your ambitions now.
That's correct.
In fact, I think it's your goal to be in the U.S. Senate.
That's correct.
Or quite lofty.
You are,
she
however,
says.
majoring at the moment in film, are you not?
Not at the moment. I've completed my film major.
So you have been a film major at UC Santa Barbara for what, 4 years now?
Well, I mean, I've been in school. I'm going into my 6th year now because I took some time off.
Okay.
But I did my film major for my political commercials.
Like she said, lofty.
And was it, or is it your intention to act in those political commercials?
What do you mean act? I mean,
Appear in them yourself?
definitely.
Did you take any drama classes when you were in high school?
Overall.
No.
As part of your film major, did you take any classes in screenwriting or creative writing?
I've taken, or I started taking a screenwriting class as an independent study project, but I stopped when I had to drop out of school. But most of it is done on the side with friends and just, creating until I get out of school and get through my law school. And then I'd like to really learn how it's done.
Jessica Lambert, I don't know. I don't know if he went into politics. I mean, my guess is no.
Now, you also told us that one of the things that you and Erik talked about by way of dreams of the future was a multi-dimensional company that did a lot of different things.
Correct.
Now, you were planning at that time when you talked to Erik, of course, to go to college, were you not?
That's correct.
And so was Erik.
That's right.
And what colleges was Erik talking about going to back when you were still students in Calabasas?
Back east, Princeton, or one of the Ivy Leagues.
And was there, in fact, a friend of Erik's who graduated the same year you did, who wound up going to an Ivy League school back east? A fellow named Pierce, Andy Pierce.
Is Brown Ivy League?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And so that's true, there was such a friend?
Yes.
And didn't Erik talk about his wanting to go to Brown as well?
I don't recall. He just said he wanted to go Ivy League.
I take it, Mrs. Cignarelli, in your conversations about your future and these shared conversations with Erik, there was no discussion of not going to college. There was a discussion of college and then career, correct?
That's correct. Well, college, but career would go on during college.
Okay.
At least plans and connections.
Thank you, B.
Like doing creative things with your friends on the side.
That's correct.
Yeah, he's definitely coming off a bit slick, which is not a good thing for a witness. And as someone who's not very knowledgeable in these
You
things,
graduated
right?
from Calabasas High School in June of 1988.
That's right.
And you started school at UC Santa Barbara in September of 1988.
That's correct.
And Erik, meanwhile, moved from a rented house in Calabasas to the house in Beverly Hills in the fall of 1988.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Were you in town when the family actually moved, or had you already gone up to school?
I think I'd already gone to school.
And do you recall how long after Erik moved to Beverly Hills that you first set eyes on the Beverly Hills house?
No.
So you have no idea whether it was days, weeks, months, or years?
It was probably months.
And do you recall, just without telling us for the moment, but do you recall the very first time you ever saw the Beverly Hills house after Erik had moved there? Do you remember what time of day it was, who you were with?
No, not the first time, no.
Can you, in your mind, picture the first time you went there?
No.
You told Mr. Kuriyama that you saw Erik at the Beverly Hills house a couple of times.
That's correct.
Is that before his parents were killed or after?
I think I saw him before and after.
A couple of times before, or one time before and one time after?
I don't know to be exact. I think a couple of times before, I believe, but I'm not sure.
Not sure. Do you ever remember before his parents died being inside the Beverly Hills house?
I think I walked into the, just into the entryway once. That was about it. I don't remember walking around the house.
And on that one occasion, when you think you just walked into the entryway, did you see Erik? Was he the person who let you in?
I don't know if he used to let me in. I remember seeing him. Yeah, he came to the entryway.
Okay. Did you see, well, were you by yourself or was there someone?
No,
with
I was with Steve Aimbutter.
And Erik came to the entryway. Did he leave with the two of you or did you stay there? I mean,
Yeah, we got in his father's car. All three of us.
okay. Now, apart from, that's something that happened at night. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Apart from that time, do you recall any other time that you were at Erik's house in Beverly Hills before his parents were killed?
Not that I recall. I don't know. I mean, like I said, we were best friends. We saw each other, all over the place. I don't remember being exactly down there.
Well, you saw a good deal more of each other when Erik was still living in Calabasas and you were going to high school together
Sure.
than after you graduated,
Sure.
correct? And in fact, you told the police on August 24th, 1989, in their first interview with you, that you hadn't seen Erik for 6 months before his parents were killed.
That's about right.
And meanwhile, during those 6 months, in fact, during that entire school year, Erik was going to Beverly Hills High School.
That's correct.
And in your talking to him, you learned, did you not, that he had made new friends?
That's correct.
Now, you've testified that, excuse me, that Erik told you about a drama class that he took at Beverly Hills High School.
That's right.
Did he tell you that drama is a required course at Beverly Hills High School?
No.
And do you know when it was that he told you about being in a drama class?
I think it was while we were down there, or while I went down there after the murders.
Okay, after his parents were killed,
After his parents
during
were
that
killed.
discussion?
I believe so. I mean, it
During
might
the
have been
murders,
after
he
that even.
says.
It was during that weekend, probably.
I'm sorry.
It was during that weekend, probably.
So would it be fair to say, Mr. Cignarelli, that until that weekend and over the preceding 6 months, you really knew very little about what Erik was doing?
No, because I'd heard from friends.
But from him directly?
From him directly, no.
Now, was it also during that weekend that you think Erik told you he had won some sort of award?
Yes,
Did he tell you about winning one award? Oh, this was a school award, I take it.
that's right. It was the drama Best Actor Award for Beverly Hills High School drama.
That's what he told you.
That's what he said.
Okay. Did he tell you about winning one award or more than one award from Beverly Hills High School?
Just that one.
Did you understand this to be a seniors award? Like, the senior class gets, best looking, best legs, best actor, most likely to succeed, that
Best
sort of
legs.
thing?
No, I thought it was the theatrical award for the school.
Okay. Now, Someone called you and you learned that Eric's parents had been killed.
That's correct.
And was it that same day that you tried to reach Eric?
Yes.
You left a message on an answering machine, but some third party called you back.
That's correct.
And you don't recall who that third party was who called you back?
No.
What is the next contact you either initiated or actually had with Eric after that?
We talked before I went down there for the weekend.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. How'd that come about?
I don't know if it was a phone or it was probably a phone call. I don't remember.
And you don't remember if it was from you to him or from him to you?
That's right.
Did you attend the memorial service for his parents in Los Angeles?
No.
Did you know when that was?
Yes.
When was it?
I don't remember the exact date now, but at the time I knew I was supposed to go and I didn't.
How many days after you heard that the parents were dead was that memorial service?
I don't recall.
And how many days after that memorial service was it that you went and spent the weekend with Eric?
I don't recall. I know I spent that weekend. It was the end of August.
Yeah, it's
Okay, but my question is, do you know how long after the memorial service it
No.
was?
this guy doesn't
And
seem
do you
so
know
close
where Eric
if he didn't go to
was
the
after
the
the memorial
memorial service.
service?
No. Oh, he was staying in a hotel.
He was staying in a hotel after the memorial service?
That's what I believe I remember hearing, yes.
Well, did you hear it from Eric?
No.
Okay. And is it your understanding that he stayed at the hotel and then he went back to the house where you spent the weekend with him?
That's correct.
So you didn't know anything whatsoever about his having gone to New Jersey, I take it?
Not that I remember, no.
And you don't have any information about how long he was gone, do you?
No.
Yeah, Leslie Abramson's doing a good job of like really kind
And
of
I take it that after his parents were killed, but before
distancing
you
him
spent the weekend
from
there,
Eric.
you had no contact with the members
In
of his
terms of
family
amity.
from New Jersey who were here in Los Angeles.
That's correct.
Now, I take it is your testimony that this conversation that you had with Eric, where he gave you information about the killing of his parents, took place at the end of August.
I believe it was the end of August, or well, it was a week and a half after it all happened, about a week and a half.
Okay. How do you know it was a week and a half?
Just, how do I know? And that's when it was. That's what I remember it being.
And you've always remembered it being then, is that what you're saying?
No, I never knew the exact date, but I knew it was shortly after.
And you've always known it was shortly after?
Yes.
Okay. On November 17th, 1989, did you meet with Detective Zoller, gentleman at the council table, at a Baker's Square restaurant near the University of California, Santa Barbara?
I remember meeting at Baker Square. Like I said, I don't remember the exact date. It was 4
Okay.
years ago.
But does November sound about right?
It's about right, yeah.
And during the course of that meeting with Detective Zoller, did you mention for the first time that Erik Menendez had talked to you about the killing of his parents?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
And do you recall telling Detective Zoller during that interview in November that Erik told you about the death of his parents during a weekend that you spent with Erik at his house?
Yes,
And do you further remember telling Detective Zoller that you spent that weekend with Erik at his house 1 month ago, October 21st and 22nd? Do you remember telling him that?
yeah. But I also remember saying that I can't be sure of the exact date that I was there.
So you weren't always sure that it was a week and a half later, were you?
No.
So what has happened since November 17th, 1989, months after the parents were killed, and now, years after, to change your impression of when the conversation with Erik occurred,
I've seen some of the written reports
of other
of
witnesses?
no of my statements to the police and to the DA and that had dates that the reports were taken, so it helped my memory.
Okay, but none of those, they didn't tell you, did they, the district attorneys who interviewed you or the police who interviewed you? They didn't tell you when that weekend was with Erik, did they?
No, I told them when the weekend was, and they gave me the exact date.
Well, how would they know when the weekend was, Mr. Cignarelli? They weren't there.
Well, I said I believe it was because I said the computer expert came up, and they found the date where the computer expert was at the house, and I guess
And
they put
so
those
then-
two together.
Yeah,
I
that's a
see. So
questionable
you're putting
way
your
of.
story together to match
putting-
when the computer person came up. Is that what you mean?
Well, I'm not putting my story together. I mean, you can
You're
twist
trying-
my
you're
words.
tr-
but
you're
I'm
trying
just
to
telling
match.
the truth. The computer expert was there when I was there, and I mean they found the
And they
date for
told
me
you,
exactly.
but-
That's right.
But on November 17th, 1989, you thought the conversation had been 1 month and not 3 months before that. Is that right?
That's correct.
Reasonable doubt.
No, it would have been 2 months, wouldn't it? Or 2.5.
And in fact, in that first statement that you gave to Detective Zoller, you didn't mention anything at all about a computer expert being there.
The first statement was August 24th, and I hadn't
first
seen
statement.
Erik yet.
And I'm not talking about seeing Erik. I'm talking about November 17th, 1989.
That's right.
Tell me about the computer expert, Mr. Cignarelli. What did he look like?
I don't remember. I remember that he had a pregnant wife. That was about it.
Well, I could tell you there was a computer
Counsel,
expert.
let's not argue with the witness. Ask a question.
It was a man?
Yes, it was a man.
What was his race or ethnic background?
I believe he was white.
And how old was he?
Maybe 30 something. I don't know. I didn't ask.
Well, what did he look like?
I really don't remember.
What about the wife? What did she look like?
She had a big stomach.
What color hair did she have?
I don't recall.
How old was she?
I don't recall.
And you said that they stayed at the house for about 2 hours?
That's about right. Yeah.
And what did the computer expert do during those 2 hours?
He was toying with the computer, trying to find what Erik said was a will. And he was going through all the files. And I think I still remember this. I don't know why, but
Well, just before, if you're going to tell us something that was said, just ask you another question.
His blink rate is kind of high.
Did you hear the
Have you
computer
finished your answer describing what the computer man was doing?
was
no.
doing? Okay, well, you can go on describing what he was doing.
All right, he was playing with the computer and he looked into a file of trees. I don't know. And supposedly trees was a word that Erik said might have correlated to the will. And he was searching all the files.
Was he finding any files?
He was finding files, but he wasn't finding what he was looking for. Not that I remember anyway.
And did you overhear the computer expert telling Erik anything about the disk being wiped or erased?
I don't recall.
Was there a time when Erik was in the room alone with the computer expert?
Not that I remember.
So you were always with him?
I believe so. Yeah.
And you don't remember the expert ever saying anything about the disk being wiped or cleaned or anything like that?
Not that I remember. No.
And where was the wife while you and Erik and the computer expert were in the room for 2 hours?
She was sitting right next to him.
And she stayed there all that time?
I think she might have gone to the bathroom once.
But that was all?
I think so. Yeah.
Now, Mr. Cignarelli, was this occasion, this Friday, when you were at the Beverly Hills house, the first time that you had actually walked around the house?
Yes.
Tell me how you came to be at the house that day.
What do you mean? How I came to be there.
How'd you get there? What time did you get there? Where were you coming from?
I don't remember. I mean, it was 4 years ago. I'm sure I drove down there.
And you said that there was a telephone conversation, you believe, between yourself and Erik before you spent that weekend. What day was that telephone conversation?
I said it might have been a telephone call. I don't know.
Well, something had to get you there, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. How did you know he was there?
Like I said, I mean, I guess we talked on the phone. I don't remember, but I remember that, he and I were going to meet up. I was going to meet him at the Beverly Hills house.
And do you remember how many days before you met him, you knew you were going to meet him?
No.
Do you recall what time of day you went there?
It was during daylight, probably late morning, early afternoon.
Between 11 and 1? Is that late morning to early afternoon?
Maybe. I don't know.
Are you just guessing?
I'm guessing.
Could it have been late afternoon?
I don't believe so. No, it couldn't have been late afternoon.
And you believe you drove there from your home in the valley?
That's correct.
And when you got there to the house, do you remember getting to the house?
No.
Do you remember getting into the house?
Yes.
And how'd you get in?
We went in through the front door because security guard was standing outside, I remember.
All right, there was a security guard standing outside the door when you got to the house.
That's right.
And did you have any contact with that person?
Yeah, I think just hello or,
And he let you in?
Yeah. Erik said who I was.
Well, how did Erik get there?
I don't know. I wasn't with him. I mean, I remember he and I walked in the front door and Erik looked at the security guard and said, "It's okay." And I'm like, "Hey," and that was it.
Well, was Erik outside when you got to the house?
I believe so, yes.
Waiting for you?
I don't know if he was waiting or talking to the security guard or.
So he was outside, you pull up, and he goes into the house with you.
That's right.
Okay. And was the computer person already there?
No.
So how much later does the computer person show up?
I don't know exactly.
Minutes? Hours?
Maybe.
Maybe which?
Maybe minutes or hours.
So you have
I
no
don't-
idea?
I really don't know.
Maybe the sky was dark. Maybe the sky was light. It's one of the two.
And what did you do then before the computer person got there?
Just talked, went around the house.
He showed you the house?
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
Yes.
And when he was taking you around the house, showing it to you, did he also show you the family room?
Yes.
Did he tell you at that time, this is where my parents were killed?
Yes.
Did he tell you at that time what the scene looked like when he came back and saw his parents after they were dead?
I believe so, yes.
And that's when he described some grisly details about how horrible the room looked?
No, not. I mean, he said there was skin and blood all over the place.
You don't consider that grisly?
I consider it grisly,
Okay.
but I just want to clarify that that's not when he told me exactly what happened.
No, this is when
Okay.
he's just describing what that room looked like
Right.
when he saw the bodies in the room after
Right.
they were dead.
That's correct.
And that's when he describes that there was this body parts and things like
That's
that.
correct.
Okay. Now, that is not the same occasion on which he led you to believe that he and his brother had done it.
That's correct.
It's now your belief that that occasion happened the next day,
No, I'm saying that happened in the evening.
the evening of the same day, Friday
Yes,
evening.
That's correct.
And I believe you described on direct examination that when Erik was telling you the conversation in the evening, he was in a conversational tone of voice, a low voice?
That's correct.
And was that also true when he was describing what the family room looked like with the bodies in it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Just ordinary chatter.
When he did the second one, it was a little lower tone.
And when talking about the first conversation, he's showing you the house and he shows you this room where his parents were killed. Did it bother you to be in that room?
A little bit, yes. Well, it bothered me to be in the house a little bit. But with all the security guards around, it was okay.
It bothered you because you were afraid?
Not afraid, just uncomfortable.
Well, had you suggested to Eric that perhaps you should stay somewhere else?
I don't believe so, no.
And you say you stayed at the house that night. Where did you sleep?
In one of the guest bedrooms.
Upstairs on the second floor?
That's correct.
And Eric's bedroom was up on the second floor also?
That's correct.
In fact, all the bedrooms but the maid's room is on the second floor, if you remember.
That's correct.
Was there a time, Mr. Cignarelli, in August, September of 1989, when you knew that Eric was staying at the home of Casey Whalen and his family?
Yes.
And when was that in relation to this weekend that you spent?
I don't recall if it was before or after. Like I said, I'm not sure of dates.
So it could have been before this weekend.
Could have been. I don't know.
There's a beeper
Can
going
I inquire,
off.
who was it who had that beeper just go off?
All right.
From now on, when you're in this courtroom, you
We are
turn
in
that
the
thing off
90s.
before you walk in the door, okay?
Today it would be a cell phone going off.
Thank you. I'm sorry, you said you don't know if it was before or after that he stayed at Casey's.
That's correct.
Did you see him while he was at Casey's?
Man,
Yes.
blast from the
Yes.
past.
Well, let me see if I can understand this. Isn't it true, Mr. Cignarelli, that the time you went to Beverly Hills and Eric showed you the house and the computer guy came, that was the first time you saw him after his parents were killed?
I believe so.
Isn't that what you're telling us?
No, I told you earlier that I'm not sure if it was a phone conversation or we talked about when we were going to meet. So I don't know.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm talking about seeing him face to face, person to person. Do you believe that this weekend at Beverly Hills is the first time that you saw him face to face, or do you believe you saw him at Casey's before that?
I don't know if I saw him at Casey's before. I do believe that was the first time at his house. That was the first time I saw him face to face.
Okay, so you think that the trip to his house was the first time you saw him face to
I
face?
believe so, yes.
Therefore, if you saw him at Casey's, that would have had to have been after this.
That's correct.
Oops, sorry. Didn't mean to pause it. Or did I? Just kidding.
Explaining
No, I
to
didn't.
you.
Actually, but I will because I've got some that I wanted to cover here. So first off, just because, thanks so much for the super chat. It says that business plan sounds like David Rose's business plan from Schitt's Creek. I have not seen Schitt's Creek. I should full disclosure, but I have heard that it's a really, really good show. I was thinking it kind of reminded me of like the Bluth siblings trying to come up with business ideas. Like how Joe Bluth has an idea for bees to like sell bees. Anyway, that's what I was referencing. Jan E. Wallace, thanks so much for becoming a Bite Club member. Welcome to Bite Club. I hope to see you on most Fridays. I was gonna say this Friday, but I don't know if I'm going to be doing it this Friday because of the holiday weekend. I might have on this Friday a members only exclusive live stream just for Bite Club members and supporters. So and anyone that is a member on YouTube or a supporter on Locals or Patreon, on Fridays, I generally speaking do an exclusive live stream on those days. So, but this week I might not. I've got to think about it. Alex F. Also, welcome to Bite Club. Thanks so much for becoming a YouTube member as well. And let me answer a couple questions here too. Love Dreaming Peach said, question, did the brothers want to use this friend for an alibi, but he had other plans? Was that the intent? This is from the previous witness. I forgot to check for questions before. I'm not exactly sure if they wanted to use him as an alibi, but I don't know exactly. His testimony around that time period is a little interesting. Alea Wallen says, will you talk about the MK Ultra CIA human experiments class action suit in Canada? I don't really know anything about it, but I think Natalie Wisco was sending me some information about it previously. I meant to look it up, but I haven't had a chance to. So if there's time, perhaps, but I already feel behind on all the cases that I've like committed to following, including Marilyn Manson. Love Dreaming Peach says, question, how long did this trial last? How far through are you? Well, we're probably just in like the first, I don't know, like week of this trial still, because we're just taking it bit by bit, one bite at a time. But but I don't know exactly how long it lasts, but I anticipate that we'll be covering this for quite a bit. Hallie F says, Alita, do you think they'll do some follow-up episodes talking about the impact of this case on future cases? I might. I mean, this is an interesting one. Your Everyday Sheep says, cool fact, apparently Leslie Abramson called Craig a scumbag when she walked past him at the courthouse. I believe that. I totally believe that. And Love Dreaming Peach says, question, wait, this was after the parents were dead, the will thing. Yeah, that's something about this whole thing feels weird, right? Like his vibe and the way that he's describing, like, yeah, and then I just casually stayed over the night when like they told me that they killed their parents in cold blood. Like it's weird. It's a little weird. Miss Fitness 3 says they admitted killing them. This about their defense. So the prosecution is going to be still introducing as much as possible their changed narrative, what they told the police before, what they told the police afterwards, what they told other people, about what had happened. And the reason for that is to get to their credibility, right? To try to undermine their credibility as early and as often as possible. Love Dreaming Peach says, question, is this witness for or against the brothers? That's a good question, right? It seems like I expected him to be for the brothers, actually. Like I expected him to be a bit of an adverse witness for the prosecution because he's supposedly the best friend of Erik Menendez, but it doesn't seem like he's much of a best friend at this point. And then Love Dreaming Peach also said, did Erik actually confess to him or not? It sounds like Erik told him two different accounts, according to this witness. So even still, like I'm not certain that I don't know what to do with that through this particular witness, because I would think that a best friend in that kind of situation would be perplexed by it and try to dig in a little closer. But it seems like they were maybe not as close of friends as the prosecution would like us to believe. Like he definitely gives off the vibe of like that their friendship was a friendship of convenience and clout, basically, right? Like you are my friend so long as you're successful. You're my friend so long as you're rich. You're my friend so long as, you fit into a particular social mold that is beneficial to me. That's kind of how this whole thing feels. The fact that he didn't go to their parents' memorial service, even though he knew when it is a little strange to me. Hallie F says, is it common for defense attorneys to be snarky? I've only streamed 3 trials and this seems common. I think, yeah, I think it can definitely be common. Not always, but defense attorneys can definitely get away with giving off more snark than a prosecutor can, because they are representing the state there. And so they in terms of like attitude and snark and all that kind of stuff, generally speaking, I think defense attorneys are probably given a bit more latitude, I would think, than prosecutors. Okay. All right. Let's continue on with this now.
That this computer person was looking for a will in the computer that would basically partially disinherit him. Is that right?
That's correct.
And did he make this statement at the same time that the computer person was there, or did he explain all this to you after the computer person had left?
I think he did it while we were there.
And since you were in the same room with the computer person, was it within earshot of the computer person?
It was within earshot, but we were just kind of, the computer person and his wife were sitting there facing the computer, and we were behind him, and we were just kind of talking behind his back anyway.
Okay. But you don't remember him talking to Erik about what he was looking for or what he had found?
What do you mean?
Oh, strike that. Maybe it wasn't clear. When you and Erik were talking about this will that Erik wanted to find, you don't know if you were talking loud enough for the computer person to hear. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you don't recall the computer person reporting to Erik what he had found or not found on the computer?
He was saying, I'm not finding anything.
He says, I'm not finding anything.
Right.
Is that right? Now,
I mean, I can't quote that exactly. I remember,
something to that effect.
Right.
Now, do you remember Erik talking on the telephone to anyone about what the computer expert was doing while the computer expert was still there?
No.
Do you know who Carlos Menendez is?
I haven't met him, but Erik said he's his uncle.
Okay. Do you recall Erik, while you're there and the computer expert is there, having a telephone conversation in which Erik is upset?
No.
To the best of your recollection, are you saying there was no phone conversation by Erik during the time the computer person was there?
To the best of my recollection, I don't recall a phone conversation.
Okay.
I'm not going to say there wasn't one.
But you don't remember one?
That's correct.
Now, it's your testimony that after the expert left, you hung out at the house, right? That Friday night?
That's right.
And from what the prosecution has told you about the computer expert, you now believe that that Friday night was September 1st. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And during that evening of that Friday night, did Erik talk to you about what he had been doing the previous week and a half?
Not that I remember. Like I said, I don't remember what was said after. We talked about the killing of his parents.
I'm not talking about after. I'm talking even about before.
No.
Well, what time was it that night when Erik talked to you about the killing of his parents? Well, strike that. What time was it earlier that day when he talked to you about finding his parents in the family room?
I don't recall.
Was it before the computer expert came?
I believe so, yes.
When he was first showing you through the house?
I believe so.
Now, this other conversation happens Friday night.
That's right.
And you stayed at the house all evening? You didn't go out for a pizza or to the movies or to...
No,
up
dinner
girls?
dinner was brought in.
Who brought it in?
I think her name was Jade or JD.
A friend of Eric's?
That's right.
And was it before dinner or after dinner that you had this conversation about killing the parents?
I think it was after.
Now, what had brought you and Erik to the area of the foyer in front of the doors to the family room? The place at which you say he began this conversation?
I don't know. We were walking around the house and the bottom floor, like I said. I mean, we played chess in the living room. We're pretty much all over downstairs.
And why were you there that weekend, Mr. Cignarelli?
Just try to help him out. I mean, his parents had just died, and I was going as a best friend
So
and
you
make
went
sure
there-
everything was okay.
You went there to console him?
Mhm.
Did he need consoling?
I don't know. I mean, he seemed a little down, but pretty normal.
Seemed down but normal. Was down normal for him?
No, I said a little bit down, but people have their bad moods, or sometimes you're not up and outgoing, and like for me, this would be down right now.
We weren't talking about you, though. We were talking about Eric.
I
He
understand
did
that, but
seem
I'm trying to
down.
give you an example of how personalities are.
Mhm. So you felt you were doing him some good by being there with him that weekend?
That's correct.
Was Lyle there?
No,
Did you know if Lyle was even in Los Angeles?
I don't know.
Now, if I understand what you're saying, Eric tells you that he comes home from being out someplace. Is that right?
Mhm.
And he's out someplace with his brother.
That's correct.
And he comes home because he wants to get some ID, overage ID, so he can go to bars.
That's correct.
And he goes inside the house to get the ID.
Mhm.
He then goes outside,
Mhm.
where he is greeted by his brother, who is holding two guns.
That's right.
And his brother says to him, "Let's do it."
That's right.
And he then proceeds to, I take it, take one of these guns and go
Yes.
into the family room and kill his parents.
That's correct.
Is that a story that made sense to you when you heard it, Mr. Cignarelli?
What do you mean made sense?
Does it make sense to you that someone would say, "Let's do it," and on the strength of that, someone else would kill his parents?
Are you asking now, does it make sense?
No,
or
then.
Then?
Then, did it make sense to you?
I wasn't sure if I believed it.
Now, you didn't ask Eric, why did you do it? Did
That's
you?
right. No. I know everybody comments about that.
I'd move to strike that, Your Honor. There was
Yep.
no question.
All right, the last remark is
Non-responsive.
stricken and the jury is admonished to disregard it.
Let me just ask you this. Did you ask Eric why?
No.
Did you, in fact, ask him any questions to follow up on this story he had just told you?
No.
You first told this story to Detective Zoller during that November 17th meeting at Baker Square, correct?
If it was November 17th, yes.
Okay, why don't we just assume, unless they object, we'll assume.
Okay.
Yeah, the fact that he never asked any sort of follow-up
And when you
questions or anything like
told
that is
him
definitely
then-
suspicious.
What Eric had said to you, you told Detective Zoller that
I agree.
Eric said
His demeanor is definitely odd.
that he actually did not shoot his mother when he walked into the room, that although his brother said, "Shoot Mom," he couldn't do it.
That's right. But no, he did not say he didn't shoot.
No, let's just take it one line at a time, okay?
No, I was okay. You said he didn't shoot though.
You told the officers on November 17th that what Eric told you was, Lyle was to shoot my dad and I was supposed to shoot my mother. You with me so
correct.
far? We went into the room and Lyle pointed his gun at my dad and shot him. He then went over and shot him in the head.
That's
Is that
correct.
right? I was unable to shoot my mom and she tried to get away.
That's correct.
Lyle shot her too.
That's correct.
After it looked like my mother was dead, I shot her twice with my gun.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, is that still what you're telling us was Eric's statement, or has that changed?
I would still say that is the statement, but I'm saying today only the parts which I remember for sure. I don't want to base what I'm saying now on those reports. I'm saying what I recall today.
Well,
and that's why I
this-
left out certain pieces of that, like shooting him in the head. I don't remember
That's a pretty decent
today if
impeachment,
he
I'm not
said
gonna
that.
lie.
And
Okay.
I don't remember today if Eric shot first
That's a
his mother
long
or Lyle shot his mother
explanation.
first.
Well, but what you testified to today was that Eric shot his mother while she was standing up and screaming, and that's not in this at all, is it?
Counsel, let's not argue with a witness. Ask a question.
Isn't that what you testified to today?
That's correct.
Do you remember that today? Eric shot his mother while she was standing up and screaming.
Yes.
But you saying you didn't remember that on November 17th, 1989.
That's a pretty decent
I'm-
impeachment.
I'm telling you exactly what I remember today.
Okay. But that's not exactly what you remember. Are you, do you, strike that, I'm sorry. Did you remember that on November 17th, 1989, when you gave your first statement to the police?
I don't know.
You do know, however, that you did not tell that to the police on that day.
If it's not in that report, no.
If it's
I
not in that
did-
report, you
I
didn't tell them.
I didn't tell it.
Okay. Now, you also did tell them, though, on November 17th, that after Eric had told you this story about Lyle and the guns and the let's do it, and that Eric said it could happen.
That's correct.
And
Actually, what I said was it could have happened.
Eric said it could have happened. Could
Yes.
have happened.
Yes. That's what I told the police.
Okay.
And
Now, just, there's no question pending, Mr. Cignarelli. We'll give you one. Now,
She's good at controlling
when
the
you
witness.
heard this story from Eric, you said you weren't sure that you believed it.
That's true.
And isn't that part of the reason why you never asked any questions?
That's true. And that's part of the reason.
And didn't you say to Eric, in fact, when he was telling you this story, I don't believe you. You've got too big a heart.
No,
Never said that.
I don't believe so, no.
So you never told him you didn't believe him.
I don't think I said those words, no.
Well, what words did you say?
I don't believe I ever said I don't believe you or you're lying or anything like that, no.
No, I'm not saying you said he was lying, but did you tell him you thought he was putting you on, pulling your leg, spinning a fantasy,
I don't
playing
think,
Putting you
mind
on,
games?
I
pulling
don't
your
think
leg.
so, no.
I love all these
Didn't you guys
metaphors.
play mind games with each other all the time?
Yes.
It was an aspect of your friendship, wasn't it?
That's why I said it could have happened to the police because I wasn't sure at the time if what he was telling me the truth,
I
and
wanna
I
hear
did
more
not
about
want to
these
be the
mind
one to
games
turn
they
him
played.
in.
So you didn't know if he was playing a mind game or not.
That's correct.
And in fact, you did not go to the police with this story. They came back to you on November 17th.
That's correct.
And on November 17th, you told them Eric had told you this story, but you also told them these words, it could have happened, to let them know that maybe it was a mind game. Is that a fair statement of why you said that?
Not to let them know because I was worried. I asked them in that same conversation, I believe,
If
about.
you could just answer the question. No, Your Honor, I'm,
Okay, counsel, let's not argue. The objection is that this is non-responsive, so ask a question.
Okay.
And we'll get an answer.
all right. Now, it's your testimony, is it not, that you told the police that Eric said it could have happened, but Eric didn't really say that to you?
That's correct.
Okay. And you told that to the police that Eric had conditioned this story to you on November 17th.
I guess, okay.
That
Since they
November
didn't object,
at the
yes.
Baker Square. And it wasn't until March 7th of 1990 that you explained to the authorities that Erik hadn't said it could have happened.
That's correct.
When you spoke to the police at Baker Square, was it during that meeting that they asked you to wear a body wire and have a meeting with Erik that they could record?
I don't believe so.
Well, how long after that interview with the police at Baker Square did the issue of your wearing a body wire for a meeting with Erik come up?
Sometime within the next week and a half.
Now, Mr. Cignarelli, when the police first came to talk to you about this situation, it was August 24th, 1989.
That's correct.
And at that time, were you told that you were a suspect?
Yes.
And did you believe that you were a suspect?
Sure. They said everyone was suspect. Everybody was a suspect.
Okay. And they were at your house. Is
That's
that
correct.
You had come home and seen a police car outside your house.
Mm-hmm.
And you had driven around for a few minutes before going in.
That's correct.
And you immediately assumed the police car may have had something to do with your friend Erik's dead parents.
That's right.
And you went in the house, and sure enough, there were Beverly Hills police officers wanting to talk to you about Erik Menendez.
That's correct.
And did
Yeah, I
they
was gonna
bring
save it for
crime
later, but
scene
there you go.
photographs with them to your house that night?
Not that I remember.
Do you remember any occasion when the Beverly Hills police brought crime scene photographs to your house?
I think so, yeah.
And did those crime scene photographs include photographs of Mr. and Mrs. Menendez?
I didn't see them.
Well, do you know if they were in the photographs? Were you told they were?
Sustained.
Yeah.
Was someone trying to show them to you? But you refused? Is that why you didn't see them?
No. They asked me if I wanted to see them.
Who's they?
I believe it was the time when they came over with a search warrant, and it was detectives. And I think there were some police with them.
Was it detectives? Was it Zoller and Linehan?
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Yes, yes.
So we'll get to the search warrant, but there was a time that Zoller and Linehan came with a search warrant and with crime scene photographs.
I don't know if they had the crime scene photographs, but someone there did.
Well, did someone being some police person?
Yes, I guess so. I don't know which one of them it was.
Well, were you told why it was they wanted you to look at the crime scene photographs?
They didn't say they wanted me to look at it. They asked if I would like to see them.
Is there any reason that they gave as to why they were offering to show you crime scene photographs?
Rephrase the question.
Were you told why they were offering you to be shown the crime scene photographs?
They wanted me to realize how serious it was.
Had you done something unserious about the situation, Mr. Cignarelli?
What do you mean?
Well, you said they wanted you to realize how serious the situation was. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Were they
Yes.
angry with you in January? Did you get that impression the police were angry?
Sustained.
Did they act as if they were angry?
Detective Zoller did, yes.
Did he accuse you of anything?
Not that I remember, no.
Did he tell you in January that you were still a suspect?
No, I don't think so.
Did they tell you in November when they asked you to wear the body wire that you were still a suspect?
Not that I remember, no.
And what was their reason that did they give you a reason why they wanted you to wear a body wire?
Yes,
What was the reason?
They asked me to talk to Erik about what happened that night.
They wanted you to wear a body wire and go to a meeting with Erik and see if you could get him to talk about killing his parents. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yes.
So they wanted you to act as an agent for the police, right?
I guess that's what you call it. I don't know.
But you knew they were asking you to help them get Erik, right?
No, they were asking me to wear a wire, and if things were said at that conversation which would help them, yes.
Okay, it would help them arrest Erik.
Yes.
And you were willing to help the police to get your best friend arrested, correct?
That's correct.
And is it your testimony that they did not also tell you at that time that if you did not help them, they would consider you a suspect?
I'm sorry, there are a couple negatives in there. Could you repeat
All
that?
right, raise the question, please.
Did they tell you in that same conversation that if you did not help them, then they would go on considering you a suspect?
Not that I remember, no.
Did they tell you that if you did not help them, anything bad would happen to you?
Not that I remember, no.
Okay, so there was no downside.
No. The downside was I was doing
There's
this
no
to my best
question-
friend.
There's no question pending.
All right, have you finished the answer?
That was the finish.
Okay, that answer will stand.
I didn't hear it, Your Honor, but I will have it
We'll
read
have the
back.
court reporter read it back.
Well, I can hear it later.
I will have the court reporter read it back so you can hear it.
Answer, the downside was I was doing this to my best friend.
Well, that was the downside for your best friend, wasn't it?
For myself also.
So you go to dinner with Erik wearing this body wire, right?
Yes.
And you bring up the murder of his parents, right?
I don't recall. I believe so, yes.
And he tells you he didn't kill his parents, right?
No, he said I shouldn't have said that.
Well, he says, you know that we didn't kill our parents. You don't remember him saying that to you?
Yeah, I think I do remember that.
You do remember that. And
Are you now going into this conversation at the restaurant?
oh, I was going to go into just his last words on that tape, Your Honor,
All right.
unless you want to wait and have a,
Well, my thought was if you're going to go into extensive examination regarding that conversation, we'll take our recess at this point.
well, I still have a lot more examination this one. We'll take
All right, we'll take a recess then until 1:30, ladies and gentlemen. Don't discuss this case with anyone. Don't form any opinions about it, and we'll resume at 1:30.
Okay.
It's present. We'll
No
resume
commercials
with
on
the
this one. This is
trial.
nice.
Jury's in a jury box. You can take the witness standing in, please. And Mr. Cignarelli, I'll remind you, you're still under oath. All right, you may resume your cross-examination.
Yeah,
Thank
they
you,
didn't have
Your
to worry about social media, right?
Mr. Cignarelli, between September the 1st, the Friday that you say you slept over at Erik's house, and November 29th, which is the dinner at Gladstone's, how many times did you see Erik?
I don't know if the meeting at Casey Whalen's house was during that period, then at least once.
Apart from seeing him at Casey Whalen's house, did you see him on any other occasion between those 2 dates?
Not that I can remember.
Now, we've established that you gave an interview at Baker Square Restaurant to the police, and I believe the date is November 17th.
That's correct.
Right. And I think you've told us that you did not arrange at that meeting with the police to wear a body wire in order to have a meeting with Erik. Is that right?
That's correct.
And is it your testimony that you don't recall when, between November 17th, that meeting with the police, and November 29th, the night of the dinner, you had contact with the police to set up this body wire dinner?
It was sometime during that week and a half.
Okay. Now, sometime before you actually walked into the restaurant to meet Erik, you met with the police on November 29th.
That's correct.
And they had to outfit you with this recording device that we've referred to as a body wire.
That's correct.
And where did you meet with them?
At the Beverly Hills police station.
And did you go to the Beverly Hills police station from your home?
I believe so, yes.
So you drove from the West Valley to Beverly Hills for them to outfit you.
I believe so, yeah.
What time was it that you went to the police station?
I don't know, evening. No, I'm sorry. They did not outfit me at the police station.
But did you
I
go
didn't
to
say
the
they
police?
outfitted me there. I said I went to the police station. We discussed being outfitted with the wire.
Okay, and was there some discussion, without telling us what it is just yet, was there some discussion about how you were to behave and what you were to talk about during this dinner with Erik?
Not really, no.
And then did you then proceed to Gladstone's restaurant
Yes.
from the police station?
No.
Okay, where'd you go first?
Up a hill about a mile and a half away from the restaurant.
And what was done up the hill?
Am I allowed to tell this? I'm sorry. This is police procedure. I don't know if I'm allowed to tell. Okay.
Well, just
Pardon?
tell us what you did.
I had a wire
Jeez.
put under my shirt and under my
Am I
arm.
allowed to reveal?
And I was
police
given a
procedures?
calculator with a wire in it.
A calculator with a wire in
That's
it? What was
correct.
that for?
That was to place on the table as another one. Another
So-
microphone.
So there were two microphones, two separate listening devices.
That's correct.
And was it your understanding that the police would be listening as the conversation was going on?
Yes.
And did you get to the restaurant before Erik or after?
I believe before.
And were you seated at a table when he arrived?
No.
So you met up with him,
Outside in the parking lot and then walked in.
and after you were led inside, you were taken to a table and you sat down,
That's correct.
and then you put the calculator with the wire in it between the two of you?
On the table, just to my right side between the two of us, yes.
And we'll get back to that in 1 minute. I want to change the subject for a moment. The police came to your house with a search warrant. Do you remember when that was?
No, I don't remember the date.
Was it in January of 1990?
Approximately, yes.
And was that search warrant for some school notebooks?
Yes.
Now, on November 17th, 1989, had you told the police that you had written down what Erik had said to you at his house in a school notebook?
No, what I said was I had begun to worry about it and I had started writing some things down about
Well-
what he told me.
Let me just read this to you. Did you tell the police that you began to worry about having this knowledge and wrote down the information in a school book?
That's correct.
And by the information, didn't you mean the statement that Erik had given you about killing his parents?
That's what I had intended to do. When I told the police, I had started writing these things down.
Well, I just read your
And
book.
that's right, but I hadn't finished writing everything. I had started writing it, and I don't want to give the impression that I'd completed writing everything. I was keeping kind of a
So I feel like there's
journalistic
going to be an
recollection
inconsistency here.
of what was said.
Okay, well, did you write down anything of what Erik said he did with respect to killing his parents?
No,
So when you told the police that you had written down that information, that wasn't true, was it?
no.
Ooh.
What was true was that I was writing down the information.
Well,
Not that I had written it down. I was in the
that you
process
were
of doing
going
it.
to write it down. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
And on the strength of your telling Detective Zoller that you were going to write this information down, he issued a search warrant for school notebooks. Is that what you're saying?
Ooh.
I don't know if that's why, but
Well, that's what
he
the
did
warrant
have a
was
search
for.
warrant. That's correct.
And before he issued that search warrant for school notebooks, had he asked you to produce them?
I don't recall.
Probably. Because if he doesn't have to get a warrant
Now,
for
they
something.
served that warrant on your home on January 25th, 1990. And did you turn over to them school notebooks?
Yes.
And did either of those school notebooks that you turned over contain one word of what Erik supposedly told you about killing his parents?
Ooh.
I don't believe so, no.
Yep.
Were you angry with or upset with the Beverly Hills Police Department for serving that search warrant on your home?
Not for serving the search warrant, no.
But you were angry or upset with them for some other reason?
That's correct.
Ooh. Why were you angry? I want to know.
You were not, however, angry and upset with the Beverly Hills Police Department on the evening of November 29th when you did this body wire thing with Erik. Is that right?
That's correct.
How long were you and Erik at the dinner table that night?
Probably a couple hours.
And I'm correct in stating, am I not, Mr. Cignarelli, that you did not get what you wanted for the police in that conversation? You did not get a confession from Erik. Is that right?
That's correct.
And after the dinner, you and Erik walked outside together,
That's right.
and he left first?
I believe his car was brought first. I don't remember. I mean, it was valeted.
And after you and he were separated, you said something to the police over the body wire, didn't you?
I believe so, yes.
You said, well, guys, I guess that didn't help much, huh?
That's correct.
I have nothing further.
Yeah.
Redirect examination?
What a way to end it. My goodness. Basically, she just completely railroaded through this whole story of Erik telling him, confessing to him about these killings, both with the body wire
Cignarelli,
that
you
doesn't
said that
support it, and then with the
At
notebooks that
first,
don't
when
support it.
Erik told you that he and his brother had shot their parents, that you did not believe him. Is that correct?
That's right. I wasn't sure if I believed him.
What was your reaction?
I get asked that almost every day.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to these gratuitous remarks and Mr. Lesson is stricken. That is not responsible.
Objection is overruled, but try not to volunteer things. All right, the answer will stand.
It doesn't matter if
Re-ask the
that
question, please.
objection is sustained
What
or
was your
overruled.
reaction
She's just
when
getting
Erik
her
Menendez
snark in,
took
which
you
is
into
great.
that room and explained to you how he and his brother had killed their parents.
Just accept it. I wasn't going to make a big issue out of it because, I mean, if you picture yourself in that situation, you don't, oh my God, or you don't, run out of the room. It just, this was my best friend and he had told me what happened and I don't know. We just kind of kept going on with the conversation and okay, and we didn't really touch on it again after that.
Now, you were asked a question of whether or not you went to the police with this information initially, correct?
That's correct.
And do you recall on November 17th, 1989, that the police came to see you for a second time?
That's right.
And do you recall what you told them on that date?
Well, Your Honor,
What?
Be more specific as to what it is you're asking.
Do you remember being reluctant initially to say anything to the police?
objection.
Yes.
Your Honor. Objection.
Objection overruled.
I was going to object based on legal.
Objection overruled.
Yeah.
Well-
Yes,
Yeah,
I
it's
was.
a
I
little
was
leading.
worried.
Or redirect.
I had asked about the witness protection program at the
Objection,
time.
move to strike, and may we approach?
You may. All right, cross-examination or redirect examination may be continue at this point.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Cignarelli, you indicated that you first got the information from Erik Menendez on about September 1st of 1989. And when the police came to see you on November 17th, 1989, what was your state of mind at that time?
I was extremely nervous. That was at the interview at Baker Square, correct?
Yes.
I was nervous and I had asked about the witness protection program and I told them that I had some information for them and they said it would be kept confidential. And I told them what I knew, and that was about it. I was just worried.
What were you worried about?
I was telling them that my best friend killed his parents, or told me that he killed his parents, and it was a hard thing to do.
In fact, you didn't initially go to the police with this information.
No.
Police came to you.
That's correct.
Now, after this November 17th, 1989 interview that you had with the Beverly Hills detectives, you were cooperating in the investigation. Would that be fair to say?
That's correct.
Sandra,
that
thank you
you
so much for
Actually
gifting
wore a body wire
5
on
Legalbytes memberships.
November 29th,
And to everybody who
1989, correct?
who just got gifted one, welcome to
Now,
Bike
you were
Club.
asked on
See you in the next
cross-examination
members only stream.
regarding some incident in which the Beverly Hills Police Department was a bit upset with you. Can you explain that?
Your Honor, I would object to explaining it until we have no particular.
We have a little more clarification as to what exactly you're referring to.
Yes, you indicated that there was one occasion where the Beverly Hills Police Department detectives came to your house, correct?
That's correct.
And on cross-examination, you said that Detective Zoller was a bit angry with you. Was
That's
that
correct.
fair to say? Why was that?
Your Honor, again, we're going to object. This is like an offer of proof as to whether it's based on hearsay, speculation.
Objection sustained. You can ask a more direct question.
What did you do? Did you do anything in that caused the detectives to perhaps be upset?
Yes.
What did you do?
I sent a fax to the police stating that they
Your
had.
Honor, I'm going to object at this point to the facts. I want to ask to be heard.
All right, you may approach again. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, when we have these conferences at the bench, don't be concerned about what we're talking about. That's exactly what the lawyers want to do. They want to talk. And my job is to listen, and then after I listen, then I do some talking. But when that happens, don't be concerned about what we're saying. It's just part of the process of a trial, and you shouldn't be concerned about the nature of our
I
conversations.
feel like that's like one of the worst explanations of like a sidebar.
All right, you may resume.
Like
Thank you.
I feel like that's a very simplistic, like overly simplistic way of explaining it, and it feels a little patronizing in my opinion. Like I feel like he could definitely just be like, so there are certain parts of this that are legal argument that are more likely to confuse people that are not involved in the process than they are to be helpful. So, this is there. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like there are ways of explaining it than being like, we're just going to talk over here and they're going to talk and then I'm going to talk. It's just, yeah, it's a little strange to me.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Cignarelli, did the problem with the police department have anything to do with your mother?
Yes.
Would you explain that to the jury?
Sure. When I had first gotten involved in this investigation, I had specifically requested that my family not be informed about me being involved. I did not want them to know I was part of this investigation or part of any help with the prosecution. And I wanted to protect at least my mother and my brother and keep them completely detached. Just do not want them involved. And to this day, I still don't. And the day after I had said that, I didn't want her to know that I was taking time off of school because she'd get upset that this is affecting me. The day after the police or my mom came up to me and said, why are you taking time off school and why are you involved in this investigation? And at that point, I became extremely irritated with the police because I knew they'd just stabbed me in the back.
They had told your mother that you were assisting in the investigation.
That's correct.
And did you express your dismay with Detective Zoller?
Yes.
And did Detective Zoller then respond at how serious this case was?
Not at that time. At another time,
Sometime
yes.
later?
Yes.
So that's your reference on cross-examination to this problem with the police.
That's correct.
When you told the police on November 17th, 1989, that it could happen, it could have happened, what is it that you meant by that? That is, after you explained to the police that Erik Menendez had told you that he and his brother had killed their parents, you added a phrase, it could have happened.
Well, like I said, I really wasn't sure what to think at that point, and I didn't want to be the one to actually turn in my best friend. So I kind of put that little stipulation on, hoping that, maybe that wouldn't be the turning point in the whole thing. And he never actually said it. I said it, and obviously I shouldn't have. But I just had real big hesitations about being the person to do it, to turn him in.
Drawing your attention to November 29th of 1989 in this taped conversation at Gladstone's. Did Erik Menendez ever make any statements referring to what he had told you before? That is, referring to his statement that he and his brother had killed their parents?
Yes.
What did he say about that during that November 29th conversation?
That he shouldn't have joked around about it. And that I should know he was kidding.
So he attempted to tell you that he was joking about his explanation of killing his parents?
Correct.
Did he then tell you to do something with respect to your information as it related to the police investigation?
He said I shouldn't tell them.
Tell them what?
Tell the police what he had told me.
And he told you that on tape?
I believe so, yes.
Did Erik Menendez ever tell you that other people in particular were involved in the killing of his parents in this November 29th conversation?
That was asked and answered on direct.
Let me answer.
What do you mean?
Did he ever mention other people that may have been involved in the killing of his parents?
Yeah, he said that he thought it was mob related, and that somebody from the company may have done it. And I don't remember what else.
Did he ever mention any foreign hitmen?
And I would object to leading. This question was asked and answered on direct.
All right, I'll permit it to overrule.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, he did. He said from Cuba.
Mr. Cignarelli, I'm going to draw your attention to the date of the computer expert being at Mr. Menendez's house, and being the date that you took the statement or heard the statement from Erik Menendez. Are you good with dates?
No.
Now, do you recall talking to me about a month ago about this case?
Yes.
You recall me asking you,
Objection hearsay.
Just offer for the truth of what was said.
no, it's just a question that I was asked, so it's not actually a statement.
This question that you asked.
Yes.
Objection overruled.
Thank you. You recall me asking you if you had any better idea of when it was that Erik Menendez made these statements to you.
Yes.
And what did you tell me?
I said it was the day that the computer guy came to the house.
Did you further explain that the computer guy had somebody with him?
Yes, I said he had a wife who was pregnant with him.
And was Detective Zoller with me at the
I
time?
would object to this as hearsay foundation.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, Detective Zoller was with us.
Did Detective Zoller ascertain when it was that the computer man with the pregnant wife was there at that location?
Yes.
And is that how you arrived at the particular date?
Yes.
Now, you had indicated that the defendant was your best friend during the time that you had with him in Calabasas, correct?
That's correct.
Now, you were asked on cross-examination whether defendant Erik Menendez was the number one singles player for the school.
That's correct.
Was he for a time?
For a time, yes.
How would you describe him as an athlete?
He's a great athlete. I mean, he was training for a triathlon that he and I were going to run. Just big, strong kid.
He was no wallflower, was he?
No.
I would object to that, Your Honor, with a strike.
Overruled.
Yeah,
What was your answer?
that's not
No.
objectionable.
Now, the tournaments that you went to, competitions around Southern California,
That's correct.
you would compete in those as well?
Yes.
And you would see defendant Erik Menendez there?
Yes.
Would he be with his parents on occasion?
Once in a while.
Would he be by himself on other occasions?
Yes.
Would you always be with your parents?
No.
Were there some tournaments that were local, I mean close to home?
Yes.
Trying to say his parents were even more supportive than Cignarelli's own parents. This is a connected family that works
With
together
respect
as a
to
unit.
the first time that you had spoken to the detectives, November 17th, 1989, when you told them the information that Erik Menendez had told you, did you tell the detectives at that point that you were having a hard time with the information that you had?
Yes. I said it was bothering me and worrying me.
I have nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Oh, there is a recross. All right, here she comes.
I take it, Mr. Cignarelli, that you're no wallflower either. Is that right?
No.
In fact, you like attention, do you not?
Ooh.
Yes.
You like to be the center at parties. You'd like to be the center of your group of friends. Do you like to be the center of attention at parties and among your friends?
No. Among friends, yes. Not at parties.
Do you like the fact that there's a television camera on you right now?
Absolutely not.
Did you ask the prosecution to ask the judge if you could not be filmed?
No, I asked the prosecution if it was possible to ask the judge if I could not be filmed, and they said that the day before somebody had asked that, and the judge said he will dictate which parts of the testimony are released, but it will be filmed.
That's what, who told you that?
I don't remember, one of the two.
One of the two lawyers, one of the two
Said
prosecutors?
Either Lester or Les Zoller.
Either Mr. Kuriyama or Detective Zola?
Yes.
So you didn't ask them to ask the judge to keep you off the camera?
No, I said, can I ask?
In fact, you got dressed up today to be on camera, didn't you?
No, I got dressed up because, I'm sorry. Can I
Because
answer
he's
that?
going to trial.
Thank you. I got dressed up because I'm in a courtroom and this is my future.
You were in
I don't
this
know about
courtroom
your
last Friday and
future.
you were wearing jeans and a white polo shirt, weren't you?
That's correct, because it was supposedly, from my understanding, an informal hearing.
Yeah, he has a point about courtroom dress. I will agree with that. But him,
Yeah, you said
saying
on
it's my
November
future?
17th.
That's weird.
You had reluctance because you didn't want to bring your friend down. Is that right?
That's correct.
On November 29th, though, you wore the body wire. You weren't reluctant anymore. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, during that body wire conversation, just a moment. During that body wire conversation, Erik asked you, I'll strike that. During that conversation, you told Erik that reporters were coming up to Santa Barbara trying to talk to you. Is that right?
That's correct.
And everybody up there was talking about rumors that you were a suspect. Is that right?
I don't recall that.
Did you tell Erik, everybody still wonders about me up there, meaning Santa Barbara?
Yeah, I believe I said
So
that.
the more
And did
you can
Erik then ask you, what
do
about
for
the police?
And
More you
when
can
I
do-
made my statement, I don't believe I was referring to being a suspect.
The more he can do for the
If you would
police,
just
the more
answer
he
the
can sort
question.
of
Did Erik,
distance
after you
himself from
said
those
everybody
rumors.
still wonders about me up there, did Erik then say, what about the police?
I guess so, yes.
Did you get a copy, a transcript of that body wire conversation?
Yes, but it was a 2-hour conversation and I can't remember every word. I'm sorry.
But you have read it since the prosecution gave it to you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall then, after Erik said, "What about the police?" you said, "I don't know about the police."
Yes.
And did Erik then ask you, talk to them?
Pardon?
Did Erik then ask you,
Counsel, why don't you just tell us the page so that
oh, I'm sorry,
Mr.
Counsel.
String has difficulty finding what page you're referring to.
B16 of 33, Mr. Kuriyama. I'll wait till he gets there.
Go ahead.
Okay. In other words, did Erik then ask you if you've talked to the police?
Yes, I believe he did ask me that.
And you told him, "I have talked to them."
I believe so.
And then he said, "What'd you tell them?" Remember that?
Yes.
And you said, "I still think they think I'm a suspect."
Okay.
And then Erik said, "Surely you would never have told them anything that I told you."
That's correct.
And is that what you were referring to when Mr. Kuriyama asked you a little while ago, did Erik tell you not to tell the police?
Yes.
So in fact, he didn't tell you not to tell the police. He said, "Surely you didn't tell the police what I told you."
That's correct.
Now, you got angry with the homicide detectives from the Beverly Hills Police Department who were investigating this case because they told your mother that you were working with them on the case. Is that what you're saying?
No. I
Well,
got upset with them
No,
because
just no is your answer. You had asked them not to let your mother know what you were up to.
that's correct.
And you discovered that they had told your mother not only were you working on the case, but you were missing classes in order to do it.
No. I said I was leaving school.
Leaving school?
Yes.
It's about the same thing.
Well, what
dude.
is, you mean leaving, like taking a leave?
Like
or?
taking a leave of absence from the university, yes.
So the officers told your mother that you were taking a leave of absence from the university?
I believe so.
Were you taking a leave of
I
absence?
was intending to, yes.
Okay, and that's what got you upset with them because it got your mother upset with you.
That's correct.
And in response to your being upset with the detectives, you sent them a fax transmission.
That's correct.
Your Honor, I have a document. What's the next number? I would like at some point to substitute this, the original for this, but I understand Detective Zoe doesn't have it today.
All right, it'll be Exhibit 48.
Mr. Cignarelli, is this a copy of the fax that you sent to the Beverly Hills Police Department homicide?
Yes.
Fax machines.
And you basically, the message of this fax was you're chiding them and telling them they were not to be trusted, exclamation point.
That's correct.
And you signed this fax in the name of the fictional character that you and Erik had created. Is that right?
That's correct.
You quote in this fax one of the Psalms, I take it. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil.
That was one of Erik's favorite sayings, yes.
Yes, it's also part of the Bible. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
And betrayal signifies evil, you wrote to the Beverly Hills
That's
Police.
correct.
Does it, Mr. Cignarelli?
I told you I was very upset.
Does betrayal signify evil?
Sometimes, yes.
I have nothing further.
Anything else?
Betrayal, as in betrayal of a friend, perhaps.
Mr. Cignarelli, counsel just read you an excerpt out of the November 29th, 1989 conversation that you had with Erik Menendez. And it stopped after Erik said, surely you would never have told them anything that I told you. Did the conversation continue with Erik saying, like that, because I mean that's, and your response, yeah, that's what I'll tell him. Hi, Erik. Erik killed his parents in a joking tone.
That's
Is
correct.
that what you stated?
Yes.
And that Erik then responded, because I could use this. They don't know who. And an unintelligible, suspect me. They suspect my brother. Did he make those statements
That's
to you?
right.
So he didn't want you to tell the police that he had told you that he had killed his parents, correct?
That's correct.
You have a moment?
Yes.
The reason why this is important here is because
In that
if
same
they can't
conversation,
get,
Mr.
here, I'll pause
Cignarelli,
it for a sec. Because
did-
if they can't get in the testimony of from the psychologist, which is where one of them or both of them ultimately ended up confessing everything to, and that's really kind of what got them, because sorry, excuse me, it was like the girlfriend or the mistress or something of the psychologist that like took the recording of the therapy session to the police. That's ultimately what ended up getting the brothers arrested and whatnot and charged with the murders. So if for some reason you can't get that in, because there were all kinds of legal reasons that they had to, all kinds of legal hurdles that they had to jump through, I should say, in order to admit that. If there's a chance that they can get it not in, then this would be important to keep out for the defense, right? Because it's like that's a second potential confession, or if it's going to come in, to try to discredit it as much as possible, which is I think that Leslie Abramson has done a fantastic job of doing basically everything that she can to discredit him.
Did Erik Menendez tell you anything about having to carry a weapon?
Yes, he said he had to carry a gun.
Why?
He was afraid of the people that supposedly had done this thing, had killed his parents.
And he told you had to carry a gun for that reason?
That's correct.
And does Erik Menendez state on the November 29th interview, there's not much I can do, man. It's page B13 of 33. There's not much I can do, man, but I carry a gun around with me.
That's correct.
So he was telling you that he needed protection from these people that killed his parents?
That's correct.
He had told you already that he had killed his parents along with his brother.
Objection, Your Honor.
Correct?
That's correct.
Objection overruled. The answer is that.
And nevertheless, he continued giving you this information about having to carry a gun and having hitmen from Cuba come to, or they're responsible for his father's death?
That's correct.
Objection overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you.
Not excused.
No. Thank you. You may step down. You're not excused. It's expected that Mr. Cignarelli will be coming back to testify on other matters later in the trial. But you're excused for the balance of the day. And is the next witness a witness who will be testifying before both juries?
Yes.
All right, then we'll take a recess. Is there any need for a hearing before his testimony?
Can we have a sidebar?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not going to get into that hearing there, but basically, I think she did. I think Leslie Abramson did a really good job of really discrediting this witness. I mean, you also come away from it noting that when he was wiretapped, when Craig Cignarelli was wiretapped, Erik's story was the mob story, the mafia story, right? If he was a close friend of his and he made this admission to him previously, you'd think that he would remember that. And it's like there's no suggestion that Erik was somehow tipped off. I mean, I think, right, unless I missed something during this testimony, but there's no suggestion that Erik was tipped off by Craig, that he was wearing some kind of a wire, that he was, that the police were listening. So why would Erik change the story that wildly in telling his friend Craig if he wasn't tipped off, and if he had a decent enough memory to keep his story straight with one of the few people that he would have told about something like this? Like, that is just, it's something that I'm personally left with at the end of this testimony. And so when you add that in with, when he's on a wire, he's not saying that he killed his parents. He's talking about the mafia and the mob and all this other stuff, which ended up not being true, of course. But the problem is, I mean, not the problem, but the strategy is that there's always a chance that something can happen and the psychologist doesn't come in, right? From the defense perspective. So, you still want to try to discredit these various admissions over time. And so you have that the wiring story of him just like, saying this, it was the mob, it was the mafia, or so we think, or what have you. And then also the God, what was the other one that I had here? I was taking notes. There was another part of here. I mean, the fact that he said that he never asked why, he never asked any follow-up questions, that was also very, very suspect. And oh gosh, I can't even remember. Maybe somebody else. Yeah, I mean, the computer guy, the fact that there were like no details on that. Let's see here. There was another piece of this for me that I am having a hard time remembering. Oh, the school book thing. Thank you. Your everyday sheet. Yeah. Yeah. The fact that the notebook that he had none of those details that supposedly talked about his conversation with Erik Menendez, and his whole long explanation, even before Leslie Abramson really even gets into it, that she's like, okay, but there's this notebook here, right? And there was a warrant for a search warrant for the notebook, and blah, 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 blah. And you said that it had this information and there's nothing in there. And he's like trying to explain for like a very long time by saying like, oh, well, I was intending to, and I had started to, but I didn't, I didn't finish. I never finished. And it's that felt very, very suspicious, because his whole reason for writing those things down in the notebook in the first place was because he said, this was all starting to really bother me, and I had to write it out to get it. It's almost like a catharsis, right? So I don't know if you guys have ever felt a need to just like get thoughts out of your head and express them on paper, to just like vomit them on a page and finally have them out of your head. You don't necessarily do that in pieces. At least that hasn't been my experience. It's like, if you feel the need, you sit down and your pen basically doesn't leave the page until you are finished word vomiting onto that page. So the idea that he's like, well, I started to say it, but then I didn't. And, I didn't finish. I was going to come back to it, is like, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right for like to fit his explanation for how he even went to the notebooks in the first place. So so that, along with the wire taping, those things do really call into question Craig Cignarelli's testimony about Erik Menendez telling him, confessing to him that, yeah, we killed our parents, blah, 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 blah. And then on top of that, I think that Leslie Abramson also very, very delicately sprinkles in all of these different reasons for Craig to sort of feel inclinations to kind of either get back at Erik or to screw him over, right? Number one, they're competitors on the tennis team, right? And Erik Menendez is the number one in singles, and maybe Craig was number one in doubles, but never singles, and so there's a possibility of competition, of competitiveness. And that can be healthy competition, of course, between friends, but that can also turn very sour and very, dirty at times. I mean, especially when we're talking about teenagers, like that kind of crap can happen. Then on top of that, I think that the piece that was even more compelling to me was when Leslie pointed out that, at University of California, Santa Barbara at UCSB, which is where Craig was going to school during the time of all of this stuff, that there are rumors that were following him, that he was involved, that he was somehow suspect. And that's something on a college campus that can really follow you, even on a campus that's as big as UCSB. I don't know if you guys have an understanding, but I went to UC San Diego for undergrad. So another UC school. These are all very large, very big campuses. And so, it's you've got a ton of people. Like it's very easy to be anonymous in these kinds of places. UCSB Santa Barbara, I think is a little bit less so than San Diego, because Santa Barbara is known as more of a party school. San Diego is known as more of a nerd school. Surprise, surprise, getting to know me, right? But Santa Barbara, there's a lot more partying that happens there. There's a lot more socializing that happens up there. So it wouldn't surprise me that a case that's as big as this could potentially follow him in terms of what people are saying about him at college campus. And that's the kind of thing that can really bother a college kid, as he's socializing, trying to do his thing. And so wanting to play a very visual role in putting these guys away and saying, no, they're the murderers. I am helping to put them away. Like by putting them at arm's length like that, you can kind of like restore some of that social awkwardness going on around him in college, potentially. So I did feel that for someone like him, it felt like a compelling reason for him to play this kind of a role and possibly even fabricate some things, because just the way that he comes off, not every personality type would feel like that's something, that they would do. But yeah, I based on his slipperiness, he's a little too slick for me, in terms of like evaluating a witness. Yeah, it seemed like that was a pretty good insight potentially into why he would potentially fabricate some things. So I think she did a really great job of this cross-examination here. And yeah, she was very, very clear with how she felt about him, wasn't he? Okay, let's get some questions here that I saved up. Aaron Morgan says, maybe you could do a stream with Erik, Hunley, Spidey, and Rob on this testimony to see what they make of it. Would be fun. Yeah, because there was a lot of body language stuff going on there with blink rates, with smirks, with shifty eyes, and looking sideways at various points. And I definitely agree. I feel like this would be a really interesting witness to review with someone like Spidey, and of course Erik and Rob. So maybe I'll tap them on this one. Good idea. Ms. Amanda says, Legalbytes, there's a black book with a red stripe at the top of the table where the lawyers are. I see that book a lot during trials. What is that book? Do you know? I don't know what book specifically that one is, but this was in the days before. So nowadays, legal research is done basically exclusively online, right? Like it's unheard of for anybody to look through case law or statutes through a book. But when I was in law school, my first year of law school, there was one research project that they made us do where we had to go to the library, the law library, to do our research and to get our sources and stuff, because they were like, if the internet shuts down, you need to know how to do this. Basically, it was like the one thing, but then otherwise we learned like entirely how to do our research online. But I don't know exactly what, so I don't know what kind of a book that was. It could be case law. It could be, it could be a secondary source on, talking about the rules of evidence. I'm not entirely sure, but it could be, I'm less likely to be like local rules. That's going to be less likely to be in a hardbound kind of book like that, but it could be the rules of evidence, perhaps, maybe, or some kind of a treatise on California law and evidence trials. I'm not sure exactly. But good question. Good eye. Sandra Ramirez says, Leslie Abrams bringing all the sass. LOL, Legalbytes, do you think she'd get away with that now? 100%. I think so. I absolutely think so. Because if you remember during the Depp trial, Camille Vasquez had a bit of sass for Amber Heard, right? Like she wasn't exactly like neutral in her thing. Like she had some sassy questions for her. I totally think Leslie Abrams could have crossed her in the same way, or even, I mean, with this level of sass, and she totally could have gotten away with it. For sure. I mean, it depends on the case, right? And how it's used. But I think, yeah, 100% it could be used today. Tasha Marlin says, do judges usually do this? Inquire about where arguments are going before the lawyers are able to get there. I understand he did it in favor of the lunch break. So it depends. So when he's doing it here, he is looking at potential relevance issues. So when somebody is taking a certain line of questioning, sometimes we ask, we're like why would you ask that, right? Like, for example, in the beginning with the first witness, with Perry Berman, when they were asking like, what kind of a model was she? We're like, who cares, right? The reason why the judge might ask, like, where are you going with this, is to determine an issue like relevance, because it's like, you can, not every single specific question has to be relevant if you have an idea of where the lawyer's trying to go and they're just setting up a foundation for something that is particularly relevant, right? So, so that it might be unclear it might be unclear to Judge Weisberg where the particular line of questioning is going for purposes of relevance, maybe some other reasons, right? Like, or if, if somebody, there was an objection to one of Kuriyama's questions about like, hey, do you remember, when you were in my office and I asked you this, and there was a hearsay question, right? And so Judge Weisberg, in order to evaluate whether or not it's hearsay, he asked him what's the purpose of you asking this? Because that's part of like the definition of hearsay, is you have to have the reason for why the statement is being offered in court, right? Is it being offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted, or is it just to sort of like guideposts along the way? And so there are a number of reasons why, but basically it's mostly going to be for purposes of like evidentiary issues. All right. Alex F. Question more general. I know not all trials are televised, but is there any sort of movement or act to make them more publicly available? Content like this and other trials help understanding so much. I don't know specifically about any kind of like movements. I know that in Florida they apparently have a what is it? A sunshine law, I think, which basically says like media needs to be able to have greater access to the courtrooms because of the First Amendment and all this kind of stuff. Not every state has that. I mean, obviously California courts tend to be pretty picky about letting cameras in. But in Florida, this is why that's why I really think that there's a really good chance that the Courtney Clenny trial is going to be televised, is because of the laws in Florida for that. Yeah, good question. Love Dreaming Peach says, question, did the so-called confession line up with what actually happened? I mean, I think so. I think so. And the question then becomes, is Craig Cignarelli telling the truth that Erik actually confessed this to him, or did he learn about his confession to Dr. Oziel and then basically line that up himself or something? You know what I mean? What actually happened there? But I think that ultimately that is what ended up happening, is what he says Erik told him happened. Love Dreaming Peach says, is the testimony of the abuse not aired? Like, we won't ever see those parts? I think we will, actually. I'm not 100% certain, but I do think that we will. Stephanie says, was the defense they didn't do it, but if they did, it was because they had horrible parents? The defense was basically like an expanded theory of self-defense, basically saying that they were under so much pressure, not just like in terms of like strict parents, but in terms of like abuse, physical abuse, SA kind of stuff, that they basically were imprisoned for so long that they ultimately, like, they snapped, right? Like they were worried that this was going to continue and it was probably even going to get worse. That's basically the theory by the defense. Love Dreaming Peach says, question, did Craig say Erik confessed after everyone knew they did it or before? That's a detail that I missed as well, so I'm not entirely sure. And Catherine K says, question, if he wanted to become a lawyer, would a potential false testimony impact his ability to do so? I mean, if there's a perjury charge and then ultimately a conviction, that is a crime of deception. So yeah, that could have an impact. That definitely could have an impact. But if there's no perjury charge, I don't think so. I mean, just because somebody testifies and some people don't believe him is not enough for him to not be admitted to the bar. Jan E. Wallace says, off topic, but if you could be an attorney in any trial from the past, what trial would it be? I mean, that Depp trial was one hell of a trial, right? Like that would have been a good one to be part of. So I don't know. I mean, there are so many. There really are so many. This one would have been really interesting to be a part of as well. I mean, just to work with Leslie Abramson. And I'm still working through this case, like one side or another, but I think, I just love the lawyering on the defense side, particularly Leslie Abramson. I think that she has some amazing skills as a defense attorney. And it would be amazing to like work from her and to learn from her and all that kind of stuff. Let's see here. Was there any other questions here while I was going through there? Let's see. What major question would you be asking him if you were in that courtroom? I mean, something that hasn't already been covered by Leslie Abramson. I don't know. She did such a good job of covering it. But I would like to ask the shark guy what the sharks thought of the family, because I mean, that would have been really interesting. Okay. All right. I think that there are some other. Okay. Here's one. Anne Catherine K. If you wanted to become a lawyer. Oh, sorry. I already got that one. All right. All right. All right. I think, is that all of them? I'm so sorry if I missed a question, guys. Oh, here's one more. Love Dreaming Peach says, so if Craig said Erik confessed to him before it was publicly known, why is it questionable that Erik confessed? How could he know? So it depends on when Craig's revelation is about that. Because if it was known that Erik had confessed to Dr. Oziel, and then Craig goes to the police and says, "Oh yeah, he also confessed to me," that is very suspect. But if he had already talked to the police before they talked to Dr. Oziel, before the police got the information from Dr. Oziel, then yeah, I would agree that the timing helps Craig in his in his account of what happened. So very good point. And yeah, very good point. All right. Okay. I think that for me about does it. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching with me. This has been such a fascinating trial to watch, and we are definitely on this journey through this trial. Next week, we've got more testimony coming up, and yeah, so far, so good. So thank you again to everyone in the chat. Thanks to the folks that super chatted, and we've got some new members today. Sandra Ramirez gifted a bunch of more memberships again as well. Thank you so much, and thanks to everybody just for the normal chats too, for folks and for folks that are watching and not chatting. All of you guys, I appreciate the hell out of all of you, and of course, always cannot forget the mods. Thank you to the mods for helping to usher this wonderful community that we have coming, where people can come together, watch some testimony, maybe have some disagreements over what we're seeing. It's fascinating to see people have different kinds of reactions in the chat. So, and I love the fact that people are respectful of one another when they do have a disagreement. So, it's just one of those great things. And I love that the mods really do help to, sort of enforce those rules, right? So that people can be comfortable in addressing these kinds of tough topics that we like to talk about on this channel. So, all righty. Tomorrow we got more content coming out. And that for me about does it. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.